I apologize. I apologize for the year-long break I took. Everyone has their real-life problems, and mine is more or less the same except there had been many deaths this year. So, I really took a long time before deciding to start writing again last month. Did a lot of editing to the best of my ability and wrote a few chapters. I even read my own story, refreshing my memory on it to gather more details. I wrote numerous plots before and had to discard it because I couldn't decide on one. Because everything felt a little bland. This is also the reason why I stopped writing for a long while. Then a month ago, I noticed few people started reading my novel for no reason, and I was like, there are people still reading this? Even 2 weeks ago, a comment was made asking me to post more chapters. For some reason, I felt happy and decided to type again. Anyway, thank you all for waiting, and if you all forgot the plot, I typed a quick yet simple summary which might help you remember the events of Vol 1 and Vol 2. Now, let's move on to Vol 3. So far, Volume 1, Chapter 1 to 67 has been edited and posted on 2nd October 2019. Volume 2, Volume 3, from 14th October onwards. Warning, spoiler ahead. If you're not an old reader of Diod, don't read the content below. Warning. Spoiler ahead. The source of this content, NOVLBN. Chapter 1 to 10. Tian Long transmigrated to another world through a temple located in China. He used something known as transmigration stone and a spatial formation to transmigrate. He arrived at the new world and took possession of a 3-year-old child. The one who took care of him, Ray Nolan, safely delivered him to his home. Tian Long came to know that his home was the royal castle and that he was a part of the royal family. He came to know that he was the first prince. Having met his father and mother, Logan and Claire, he came to somewhat accept his identity. That was until he spent 3 months with his mother. Her motherly love had melted his cold heart, and he was able to forgive himself for indirectly killing her child and wholeheartedly accept his new identity. At that moment, he had made a breakthrough in soul-forging cultivation and reached low-level nascent soul stage. From this point onwards, he lied that he was reincarnated and made his parents accept for who he was, rather than lying to them that he was their real child. Still, they slowly accepted and welcomed him into their family. A year later, his little sister, Clara, was born. Chapter 11 to 50. Logan realized that his family was more important than his revenge, realizing a breakthrough into the adult soul stage. Claire got conceived again, and Davis decided to increase his soul cultivation using the Redemption Tower. Davis faced his past again and met the person he didn't want to, Twizer. Breaking through the evil will of his heart demon, he successfully advanced to the next level in soul cultivation, mid-level nascent soul stage. Davis practiced body tempering cultivation and essence gathering cultivation. During cultivating essence gathering cultivation, he absorbed fallen extinction lightning, which is a lightning elemental which increased his essence gathering cultivation battle prowess, but also helped him to reach peak level, nascent soul stage. Wanting to know about the uses and limitations of the Death Note, Davis went to experiment with the Death Note in the prison. During this time, the Lorette Empire capital was invaded, and there were too many undercurrents causing havoc. Faced with a million-sized army from 2 opposing empires, namely Tridor Empire and Raven Empire, Davis had no choice but to kill all of them by using the Death Note. Davis then pushed the action of the massacre to his non-existent master, which then later became a legend, causing all other empires to be wary of Lorette Empire. All the neutral emperors gathered and discussed about that mysterious senior. During this summit, Davis got engaged to Shirley, and later, he found out that he was engaged to Evelyn even before he was born. In his 8th birthday, he had been given a maid because it was custom to have a personal maid in a prince's life according to the royal family. The maid's name was Elia. He went out to Rome, but instead met with his first fiancée, Evelyn. After making Elia his friend, he taught her cultivation, battle techniques. There was slight friction between Elia and his little sister Clara, which he solved by making them friends. He went out to meet with Evelyn during the night, but he was followed by 2 people who were the ones to escape the rebellion massacre. After successfully killing one of them and taking control of the other, he left to find an assassin organization. Joining the Dark Earth organization, he performed assassination of targets that he deemed evil. He met with Evelyn during the day and let her know his thoughts about her. He favors her and gifts her a core expansion pill, but hidden in the container was a message for them to meet alone. Chapter 50 to 100. Davis's acts as an assassin made him a local legend known as Dead End, after he had killed Harmon and numerous experts. With absorbing the soul essence of numerous experts, he reached young soul stage. He secretly met with Evelyn and conveyed his favor to her, but unknowingly angered her. After 3 weeks, his father came back and Davis staged a farce, making his father get rid of the 2 traitors he had subdued. Davis then came under the tutelage of alchemist Highwood and started learning alchemy. His mother exposed his liking towards Elia, but he denied it. After that, he met with Evelyn and told her not to cultivate to the 3rd stage, while Evelyn promised that she will be his if she can't beat him in the Grand Sea. Continent meet. He then reached low-level silver stage, mainly because of his tolerance to bearing pain. He then traveled to the Grand Sea continent meet and arrived at the Goat Island. A dispute occurred because Emperor Tritor targeted Elia, but Davis solved it by striking the guy who came to give trouble. Realizing her weak fate, Elia and Davis to teach her more. In the first round of the preliminaries, Elia killed 6 pursuers for targeting her life. After that, she fainted and only woke up a day later. At this time, Davis had no idea that something was taking root and growing in her soul. Instead, he took it as something that happened because it was the first time she killed people. After that, he met Evelyn and battled her. The result was that he won, but Evelyn duped him by saying that although her heart and soul were his, her body wasn't. Davis wasn't worried and left, but then her team, which had been with her, made her realize her own feelings deep down. In the second round, they had to hunt magical beasts. Davis did something which tarnished the reputation of Traitor Emperor, and in turn, Traitor Emperor planned to assassinate him, but it backfired. Davis used the Death Note to kill Emperor Tritor and Emperor Raven at the same time after the second round ended. He canceled the marriage with Shirley with her consent. The finals began, and he utterly dominated Shirley since she had provoked him into proving his arrogance. The emperors then gathered and explained the significance of the competition. Chapter 101. Davis returned and absorbed the 2 souls he got from killing the 2 emperors. Subsequently, he broke through to adult soul stage. His Death Note became able to talk and articulate its thoughts into words. It already had consciousness, but wasn't able to display it because its powers had been sealed. Using the powers of his Death Note, he removed the seal from his mother, gets to know about the first layer from his mother, trains in alchemy for a period of 5 months. His mother explains the reason she told him to stop cultivating essence gathering cultivation, and also explained about variation in cores. He was then invited to Shirley's birthday, along with Evelyn. Davis realizes that Elia was acting weird, but he chalked it up to her growing up, being in a rebellious phase. He brought Evelyn into the royal castle and an accident happened. Elia had been possessed by her previous incarnation and wrecked part of the royal castle. Davis was unreconciled as he didn't want to kill Elia, but neither did he want to kill Elia's previous incarnation because it might harm Elia. Instead, with a positive attitude, he thought of somehow befriending Elia's previous incarnation, but still couldn't help feel hatred for her. He was again sad that he had totally forgotten about Evelyn and felt like shit. To make it up to her, he used Shirley's birthday to travel to the Ashton Empire with her. After they arrived at Ashton Royal Capital, they were welcomed by Emperor Ashton and Shirley. They then stayed at Sign Lentils Inn, where the situation has developed into an ambiguous air. From that moment, they crossed the second hurdle and kissed each other passionately. Suddenly, he got a letter from a scrawny man which pointed out that it was from Shirley, telling him to meet her alone at the Bright Star Royal Palace. He decided and left. Getting involved in trivial undercurrents, he saved Shirley from a sinister aphrodisiac. Learning that she was not the one who sent him the letter, he instantly dashed away through a secret entrance in the Bright Star Royal Palace. When he returned to the inn, he managed to save Evelyn in the nick of time and killed 2 women who were responsible for severing her arm. Returning to the Lorette Empire's royal capital, he broke his marriage agreement with Evelyn when he learned that the Caldon family elders were plotting. Instead, he personally proposed to her as an individual. Going back to the royal castle, he met with his new stepbrother and stepmother. Dealing with the problems and convincing Evelyn to make her wait for him, he finally left to the secret entrance. In that place, he once again met with Shirley, but eventually left after a situation had occurred. Killing all the geniuses with the death note, he made it to the other side. Yes, I finally managed to obtain it, a person exclaimed, with a voice full of excitement but also exhaustion, as he held a glowing stone on his palm. The voice was quite soft, but also had the ability to put a genuine smile on the face of someone who heard it. His hair that should have been ink black appeared dull white, while his straight nose made him look sharp. But his lips were dried that also made look like a cool homeless spirit. This person's haggard appearance was overlaid with a bit of wrinkle on his cheeks, yet made him look young at the same time, like a youth who had aged a bit. It's been 10 long years since I, Tianlong, managed to obtain the death book. A deep glint flickered in his eyes. And the thought that he had managed to obtain the item that he had been searching for more than 5 years left him with the feeling of excitement and nostalgia. I have only used the death book to kill my only enemy back then, and I haven't used it for killing since then. Numerous scenes flashed past his eyes. Feeling the passage of time, he gently sighed. On the one hand, he had only used the death book to kill his one and only enemy, while in the other, he managed to carefully traverse his way into succeeding in his endeavor. The matter of searching for this item without even having to dirty his hands. It's time to go back to my homeland and pull off this crazy idea that has been gnawing at my heart since 8 years ago. Walking out of a cave, he proceeded to leave the mountains to get back to the airport, which was situated in a city a few kilometers away. He finally cast a look at the Virgin Mountain Range, not trespassed by anyone to his knowledge, nor did he see a single soul who engaged in the sports of trekking in this place. Then, without encountering many problems, he descended down the mountains the whole way before encountering a vehicle on the elevated roadway. Luckily, he managed to hitch a ride along the way to the city. After arriving at the airport, he boarded the airplane and returned to his home country, China. After returning to his home and resting for a while, he did nothing as he sat on the sofa, feeling refreshed from the hot water bath. However, he started to have second thoughts about his plan at the last minute. Numerous matters flashed past his eyes. The acquaintances he formed a little connection with, but didn't dare to improve it due to his near-death situation. Tch, it's do or die. I don't have much choice. In any case, I don't have much time to live in this world anyways. He composed himself. He packed his things and went out of the house, locking it behind with 2 more locks than the usual, making it look like he had gone for a vacation again or had sealed the house for some reason. All right, it's time to leave this world. Silently muttering to himself, Tianlong left for the place that has many rumors, including that it's connected to another world. Although he heard rumors, he did his homework and flushed out the possibility that it might be fake. Honestly, my chances of crossing over are pretty low. Way low. I only thought of this idea because having only a few more years left to live made me feel hopeless and empty. After all, I want to live more, he thought, introspecting his own thoughts about this mad plan and his actions. After arriving at an ancient temple in a certain region in China, he searched the whole place for any unusual signs. Unfortunately, he found none, and the day was almost about to end. This place is notably abandoned, yet it's kept clean. Why is that? Tianlong muttered in an inquisitive tone to himself. Being alone for a long time, he had developed the habit of talking to himself, both mentally and physically. After seeing that he hadn't found anything for today, he decided to just sleep and continue the search tomorrow. However, just as he was sleeping in the makeshift tent that he had set up, a sound startled him awake. "Who's there?" Tianlong shouted as he turned cautious. "Whoa, don't jump scare me, old man," a young man exclaimed. Tianlong examined the young man with his eyes, but hearing that he was called an old man, his eyelids started to twitch in annoyance. Nowadays, people calling him an old man was a common occurrence, and he didn't put much thought into it since his vitality was waning due to his lifespan being reduced. "Who are you, little boy?" Tianlong asked, even though he knew the answer. "Me? I'm Xiao Yi," the young man replied. He looked as if he was not at all bothered or scared about by the presence of an old man in this ancient temple. After all, a person could also mistake Tianlong's countenance to be the same as a pale ghost. Just when Xiao Yi was about to ask with a curious and confused expression on his face, he was interrupted by Tianlong. "Why are you here?" "Me?" Xiao Yi was first taken aback as he thought of asking the same question. He blinked and then answered, "I'm hired by the nearby temple to clean this place every week and patrol once in a while." Hearing that, Tianlong was astonished. Isn't this place abandoned? Yeah, it was, but it's now the property of the nearby temple. They bought it about a month ago, Xiao Yi replied in a casual tone. Oh, I see. Tianlong nodded. Now that you understand that it's private property, shouldn't you be leaving? Xiao Yi questioned in an annoyed manner. Yeah, once it's dawn, I'll leave. It's pretty late right now. Tianlong yawned and said, Reasonable? I don't want you camping out here tomorrow. Old man, just leave after resting. All right. Saying so, he went back to his tent. A few minutes later, after routine patrolling, Xiao Yi left the ancient temple. From the transparent part of the tent, Tianlong saw him leave. Ah, how young. He is rather nice inwardly, even though he appeared to be rude and pretty blunt. He felt that he had rather managed to see through the young man in a glance. Still, what is he doing here at midnight? Patrol once in a while? Do people usually pick this time to patrol? Tianlong chuckled as he thought. Or was he having a rendezvous with a woman or something? His brows creased for a moment. Looks like I don't have any time left to sleep. This worn-out body of mine can't take this anymore. Shouting in his mind, he stormed out of the tent and started searching the place again. Switching on one of the numerous torchlights he brought and hid in the tent, he started looking around for any kind of unusual signs in the place he hadn't searched for yet. There were many statues of lions and tigers, but they were all different in a way that he couldn't put his finger on. There were even murals that were depicting some kind of history. However, the statues and the murals were all more or less shattered, making the ancient temple look more like a ruined temple. An hour passed since he continued his search from the time Xiao Yi left. Moving around, Tianlong entered another one of the many wide rooms. He moved towards the front of a wall and started tapping around. Tock, tock! As he kept tapping around the wall, a muffled kind of sound echoed across the room. Tianlong blinked, and the next moment, his dried-up lips widened into a smile. Yes, found it. He pushed that certain part of that wall, which created a muffled sound. An underground door opened in the room, which made Tianlong glance at it instantly. He checked if it bore some traps for quite some time, being a bit patient. An hour later, he couldn't find any traps, and that made him feel a bit assured. If he were to lose his life even before crossing to another world, then he didn't know how many people here who were in the know would laugh at his dead body. Ensuring that were no dangers to be found with his current expertise, he then started to descend the underground door. He encountered a lot of stairs leading down and arrived in front of an iron door etched with some kind of decrepit patterns. Tianlong stared at the switch right beside the iron door and yanked it down. The iron door opened up, and he entered the underground area, lighting up space with a torchlight in his hand. An unfamiliar and eerie sight came into his view. Tianlong gasped in astonishment as he saw the unknown formation, which was like a circle. The outer circle appeared spherical, while the inner circle looked oval with an eye on it. It looked like a demonic eye that almost gave him the chills. Oh, this must be the formation which makes this ancient temple unusual enough to be rumored as a ghost temple. There were indeed people who came here for fun and found this place, making it rumored to be a temple that worshipped evil gods. They spread the information but never came back, and neither did people come to check this place out of fear. In any case, it was just a local myth that didn't garner much attention from the authorities. Tianlong muttered and walked towards the formation as he arrived at the eye of the formation. That's a creepy-looking eye, all right. I should probably be in the center of this formation to increase my chances. The rumors that were circulating around were mainly related to ghosts, but the moment the picture of this formation circulated throughout the internet, it was quickly taken down. However, Tianlong noticed it in a timely manner, and even jotted down the name of the ancient temple in his notepad since he was on the lookout. Originally, he only thought of it as a prank, but noticing the mysterious groups he had been keeping an eye on behaving like they had been fed ecstasy pills, he was quite sure that this was the place he was looking for from 8 years ago. Tianlong took out a stone from his backpack, which emitted a faint green and purplish otherworldly light. It was the item he found before returning to China. The transmigration stone. Tianlong's eyes shone brightly under the illumination as he muttered. At least, that was what the others called it, since it rumored to be capable of hosting souls in it. If the characters of the nearby temple knew if that I had the stone, would they become mad? Tianlong laughed loudly. That nearby temple which Xiao Yi mentioned is one of the factions he had his eye on. but the matter of them purchasing this ancient temple seemed to be so secretive that he didn't manage to even hear a word of it. He then walked to the stone that looked like a podium. Hit E, an obvious place to keep the switch to activate the formation. I like it. The switch itself was half spherical in shape, and it kept glowing. Does this mean they have charged this formation already? Perfect, Tianlong exclaimed. The temple nearby painstakingly used its resources to charge it. This formation took at least 2 years to charge to a certain level, which Tianlong didn't know about. If he knew, he certainly wouldn't have approached this place that easily because of the uncertainties involved. But why did they charge this formation? It can't be that they are warmly welcoming me, is it? Tianlong was deeply in doubt and couldn't help but joke. He pondered about this for a while but creased his brows. Thinking about this is useless. After I activate this formation, either I die or live in another world. Tianlong stomped the ground and stopped his indecisiveness. He took a deep breath before reaching out to his inner pockets over his shirt and took out the death book as he exhaled. It's time. He took out a pen and positioned above the death book. His right arm stiffened in place while his fingers which held the pen quickly moved. Tianlong, after the activation of the formation and during the space-time travel, his soul gets jolted out from his body, then enters the transmigration stone. After reaching the other end, his soul possesses a weak body that is below 20 years of age using the transmigration stone, and after 5 minutes dies of a heart attack. Hiss! Tianlong drew in a cold breath of air as his heart palpitated in nervousness. Tumultuous waves rose in his heart as his blood boiled, threatening to overwhelm his mortal heart and mind. To use the death book on himself, he had to write his own name. The death book can control and kill people to a certain extent, meaning that it is capable of manipulating the soul. So it should be able to control the soul to quite an extent. He consoled himself as he thought, "It's fine, I will be tying the transmigration stone behind my head, and there's not much distance between my soul and the stone, so it shouldn't be a problem for the death book to succeed. If only my theory is correct, that is." His hand shook as he almost dropped the death book. After all, he just put an end to himself if things didn't go the way he thought it would. The moment he wrote his name on the death book, he knew that he would undoubtedly meet his end. He cannot extend his lifespan with the death book because he had tried it on people who were going to die before. So writing his name on it is just killing himself at this point. He didn't know how much time he had left to live, but judging by how he lost his vitality, he inferred he had 1 or 2 years at best. That 5-minute leeway was just for him to test if the death book still worked on the other side. If it worked, then he would die in 5 minutes. If he didn't die in 5 minutes, then he would die within 2 years due to his waning lifespan. Tianlong felt that his lifespan being crippled applied to his soul as well. However, he also felt that the crippling of lifespan didn't affect his body directly, but was a byproduct of affecting his soul. After all, a rather famous doctor had found him to be an enigma, since that doctor couldn't find the reason for his rapidly aging body, even though Tianlong was just below his 30s. Hence, Tianlong thought that his limited lifespan directly affected his soul, which in turn made his body experience an enormous drop in vitality. That's why it's also a do-or-die situation for him. He felt that he should die quickly rather than waste 2 years in a new body before dying because of his crippled lifespan. That would be just too pitiful, perhaps even pathetic. This plan came to his mind when he completely realized that the death book was capable of controlling the soul to manipulate people other than directly killing them. He had also included in his plan about the fact that the death book can arrange strange coincidences, so he felt that it could make the transmigration stone search for a rather appropriate body to possess. In short, his entire plan to live relied on the fact that the death book will stop working the moment he reached the other side. He was relying on pure luck and unconfirmed facts. Tianlong's legs shook uncontrollably. Damn, stop getting cold feet already, I've done it now, and there's probably only 2 years left for me to live. There's no going back. Tianlong expressed a determined expression on his face and patted his thighs before he started the formation. As the underground area trembled, space-time fluctuations appeared, activating a vertical space-time passage. Tianlong went to the eye of the formation immediately and left his fate to luck. He looked at the iron door one last time before feeling like a traveler. Goodbye, Earth. Beep-ziz-ziz. Tianlong got instantly absorbed into the space-time tunnel. However, the moment he entered, he suffered a fate extremely worse than people getting crushed by a huge rock. He became enormously pressured by the spatial tunnel. His body felt like being shredded by thousands of blades, causing him to scream in pain. Oh! Is this spatial tunnel not stable? I'm doomed. Tianlong saw his hand disintegrating by the chaotic spatial turbulence. Haha, it's over. Letting out a faint laugh, he looked at his disintegrating shoulder. Just when his shoulder started to disintegrate, his soul jolted out of his body and entered the transmigration stone. Tianlong didn't notice the death book being shredded to dust. A black shadow flew out from it and also entered the transmigration stone. He passively observed his body being disintegrated into nothingness, which made him feel nauseous, wanting to puke. But he couldn't, as he was in his soul form. The transmigration stone then flew in the space tunnel, encountering many spatial storms that made him feel like he was traveling on a tiny boat surrounded by a colossal storm without any sight of an island in the distance. Tianlong couldn't figure how much time had passed. He was listless throughout the whole journey, mourning the loss of his body and the death book. The death book he had tried harming before but never made a dent on, actually disintegrated. He had been able to tear its pages in the past, but as for damaging the cover, he had not been able to do it, not even once. Its disintegration actually made him lose half hope for the future. Initially, he had just wanted the death book only to stop working, but never did he imagine that it would disintegrate in this spatial tunnel. If his soul form were to have eyes, there was no doubt that it would look dull about now. Even then, he could still observe. However, he couldn't even perceive at this time as his surroundings were completely black, only making him capable of feeling his existence that was still alive in a sense. After some unknown time, the transmigration stone finally flew out of the spatial tunnel, arriving in a brand new world. Meanwhile, on Earth. Who activated the formation? The nearby temple's head priest flew into an angry fit and started breaking the furniture beside him. "Check the abandoned temple immediately," the head priest shouted out loud. Many people in mysterious robes moved away to check the abandoned temple quickly. The head priest then calmed down after a minute and then harumphed. I don't know who activated the formation, but traveling in it is useless. Countless experiments have been done, and we don't even know if a person has managed to reach the other side. Sometimes the body disintegrates even before one enters that incomplete and unstable formation. It is useless! What do you mean by useless? Suddenly, a voice could be heard coming out of a bald man who appeared out of nowhere. We have confirmed that it is indeed connected to another world through various means. If only we had the transmigration stone, which can host a soul, we might perhaps be able to reach the other side. The bald man sighed gently. What use is there to have the stone? If you can't move the soul to the stone, it is still useless. Hey, you may not have a method to move your soul, but I do. The bald man sneered. Too bad. The transmigration stone appears every 1,000 years, and we have used up all we had on experiments. Judging by the time it last appeared, it should have appeared by now. Quick, search for it. I know, the head priest replied with an annoyed expression. Suddenly, a man came sprinting before stopping at a respectful distance. Head priest, we found Zhao Yi outside the temple, and the man hesitated. He what? The head priest looked quite impatient. The man's forehead was stricken with black lines, his facial expression full of hesitance. Quick, out with it. He was doing a woman under a tree nearby the abandoned temple but escaped once he saw us. The head priest became stunned while the bald man started to laugh as he rubbed his beard. Kill both of them and feed them to the dogs. The head priest had coldness flickering in his eyes as he echoed. However, the man who came to report was trembling from head to toe. Head priest. What? That woman is your illegitimate daughter. Puis, the head priest's eyes widened before he sprayed a mouthful of blood and collapsed while the bald man laughed out loud like a madman. The transmigration stone finally disintegrated in the skies and generated a green, purplish glow to wrap around Tianlong's soul. The radiance then suddenly shot towards in a certain direction, faster than the standard speed of light. In a place few kilometers away from the transmigration stone that appeared in the middle of nowhere a few seconds ago. Not good. He's not going to make it. A middle-aged man sighed. His expression was full of gloom. His pupils were trembling, but it looked like it was out of fear rather than sadness. This middle-aged man stood wearing a blue armor with a tiger's image imprinted on it. Other than the armor being intimidating, it was quite damaged, looking ruined. He's been in a coma ever since you found him. Is it even worth to care that much for a child you don't even have any relations with? Gray, another middle-aged man with the same blue armor, asked. I arbitrarily picked him up, and then I should be the one to take care of him. Shut your mouth, Mel. Gray snapped back. His loose red hair made only one of his eyes visible. He possessed an irritated expression on his face that instantly made Mel's expression turn ugly. That's it. I had enough of your righteous act, Gray. You don't even do the things our captain commands properly, and all you do is take care of that child. Is that child your illegitimate son? Mel shouted in anger. However, to Gray, Mel just couldn't help but find trouble once again. Gray's eyes became a little cold. He unsheathed his sword out of his scabbard as the blade reflected the sunlight. I know you have some enmity with me, Mel, so stop finding fault with me time and time again. If you have the guts, let's end this once and for all. You think I am afraid of you? I'll show you who's going to obtain the captain status after our captain retires in our Blue Tiger mercenaries. Mel also unsheathed his sword, taking a battle stance to fight. Hearing that Mel indirectly accepted the fight, Gray shot out with an unbelievable speed for his current cultivation base. He created a blinding light with his sword that instantly covered the whole area with brightness. What? A new battle technique? Mel momentarily went stiff. He almost peed his pants when he saw his vision being obstructed by the light. He didn't move since he couldn't see as his eyes were blinded and even experienced momentary pain in his eyes because of the light. And at the subsequent moment, a unique glow dimmed by the brightness released by the battle technique shot to the child who had just stopped breathing momentarily. Both of them who were entangled in the battle didn't notice the strange phenomenon. Mel opened his eyes only to see a sword in front of his neck. He could feel his life slipping out of his hands, or it was better to say his neck. He started shivering involuntarily out of fear, afraid for his life. His lips trembled, wanting to talk but couldn't. I think I had enough of your provocation, moron, Gray coldly uttered. His arm moved, and just when he was going to sever Mel's head off, a voice sounded, prompting him to stop. Wait. Shh, it's the captain, Gray muttered as he backed off. This was rather a critical time, and he had no leisure to bother with Mel or the captain. Meanwhile, Tianlong, who had entered the child's body, started to feel warm but disoriented at the same time. Tianlong faced absolutely no resistance when he entered the body. It was as if the child's soul didn't exist in this body in the first place. However, he felt rather weak, but at the same time, felt something inwardly, a warm, pleasurable, and a relaxing sensation. Is the transmigration stone healing this child's weak body? At the same time, Tianlong couldn't believe the fact that this child's body is his own from now on. It was such a fantasy that even he felt disoriented from reality for the moment. However, his calm thinking still operated his mind even while he felt slightly unreal. Ha, I'm saved. I'm saved. Captain Gray tried to kill me for real. Kill him. He's a traitor, Mel exclaimed, full of happiness, and framed Gray without even caring for his own image. It was as if he became crazy for the moment. Is that so? The captain walked to where Mel was pathetically shouting. Just when Mel thought that he could get his revenge, a fist appeared in front of his face, making his eyes widen in shock. Boom, the captain punched with force, not holding back at all. Mel's cheek slightly caved as he flew 2 meters away from where he stood, crashing on a wall. The wall did not completely break, but held Mel. Gray blinked to this scene, not understanding the gist of it, feeling confused as to why the captain didn't protect Mel this time. Why? Mel, who was stuck on the wall, muttered with a dumbfounded tone, while the pain he felt made him feel quite humiliated. You think I don't know your ploy? How many times have I told you not to mess with Gray? Captain reproached Mel and turned to look at Gray. Gray, please forgive my nephew Mel. He won't do this again, and I will personally handle the punishment for him. He slightly bowed. Gray nodded his head and didn't say anything. He could only accept his hardships out here and do his best currently. However, the situation seemed rather hopeless for a long time, with the child's health weakening over all these years. The captain sighed at his gesture before his eyes imperceptibly flashed. By the way, did you see anything glowing around here? The only thing glowing here was my sword. Gray gave a harumph. Not TH. All right, the captain suddenly stopped giving information. He thought he had found a treasure, and so he wasn't willing to share it with anyone. Tian Long, who possessed his new body, started sweating a little when he heard their speech, not because he heard the captain mention the glow, but because he couldn't understand anything they said. Is my fate so terrible? Of all the weak people under 20 out there, why a child? I couldn't even take care of myself in this state. I'm doomed. Tian Long had a listless expression on his face. He looked upwards, towards the cloudy sky which looked similar to his fate, gloomy as ever. The little sunlight that fell on his face failed to provide him warmth. He suddenly made a determined face to keep on living in this world, which was quite cute in itself. However, there was still the matter of 5 minutes, so he was rather waiting for that moment to pass. Although the death book had disintegrated, the damage to his soul was already done, so he remained doubtful on whether if he would survive the 5-minute time limit. Gray turned around and returned to where the child was lying down with his back. He was instantly astonished to see that the child was awake. Kid, can you hear me? Are you fine? Gray shouted in excitement as he kneeled beside the child. Calm down, Gray. He's just a kid who was in a coma ever since the time you found him. Do you truly expect him to talk? The captain chuckled. Ah, right. I just lost myself in happiness, sorry. Gray replied, in a slightly embarrassed tone. All right, take care of the kid. I got things to do. The captain bid farewell and left. His eyes flashed with a deep glint as his head moved left and right, trying to find the source of the glow. What the hell are these guys talking about? I can't understand. What language is this? Tian Long's mind only after calming down did calmly try to make sense of the situation. Actually, where is this place, and who is this child? He then looked at the middle-aged who seemed rather worried about him. Could this person be this child's father? Suddenly, Tian Long's glabella, the prominence between his eyebrows, started throbbing painfully. Kid, what's wrong? Follow news stories at No VL being calm. Gray panicked as he looked at the child shout in pain. Oh no, he felt his body going cold. What is this black thing in front of my eyes? Tian Long saw an eerie sight in front of him. His vision suddenly disappeared, and it became pitch black as if lost all sight. But a moment later, the pitch black became an anomaly in his view. A rather familiar anomaly, if he should say. Tian Long tragically screamed as he kept holding his head until he fainted from the immense pain. Gray, who panicked, quickly became eerily composed as he saw that the child stopped suffering. He checked the child's pulse and heaved a sigh of relief. He's just fainted, thankfully. Perhaps he just got scared of my face. It makes sense. After all, it's the first time I'm seeing him open his eyes. This child sure does like to keep me hanging on a thread. He laughed ruefully and sighed as he thought about the hardships he had faced until now. It's almost this child's 3rd birthday. Good thing he woke up before that, or else I would have had my head severed. Noticing the coincidence, Gray thanked the heavens. He then carried Tian Long to his room and made him sleep in his bed. He then sat before the table and wrote a letter in clean strokes, imprinting it along with a somewhat moderately patterned secret seal. He stood beside the window and whistled. A beautiful pigeon flew through the window and stood on Gray's shoulders. Its eyes looked sharp, and it rather had an imposing presence when compared to its tiny stature. Gray then tied the letter to the pigeon's leg. The next moment, the pigeon then flew away from his shoulder to its predetermined destination. That's about it. My mission is finally going to be over soon. If everything goes smoothly, I guess. Gray had experienced too many hardships in these 2+ years. He had used every coin on him to look after this child, leaving him to be worse than a beggar. He had no choice but to join a mercenary group to support the child and himself. It's been almost 3 years since I left the Empire, and hopefully the tide has crossed over, and if it hasn't, then we'll both die. He again laughed ruefully and collapsed on the floor, his eyes completely shut, making him appear as if he was dead. However, he rather let out a sound snore in a few seconds. For the first time in his life, after accepting the mission handed down to him personally, Gray peacefully slept. After 3 days had passed, Tian Long still hadn't woken up. Constantly suffering from pain in his head during this time, he looked as if he had been suffering from a nightmare. Source of this content, NOVLBN. What happened to this kid? Is he suffering from some illness? But the apothecary I hired told he was perfectly healthy for his age, which is unusual in itself because he's been in a coma from the time he was born. Is the heavens helping us? Gray murmured as he found it difficult to understand this situation. Whatever, I'll just report it to the higher-ups as it is. He opened the door and left the room. After a few moments of silence in the room, a child groggily opened his eyes. Where am I? What is this place? Why am I not dead? Tianlong had a lot of doubts and many questions in his mind, but the most prominent one was, what the hell is this black thing in my soul? Wait, I can sense my soul. Tianlong was utterly confused and even a bit scared. The feeling over his glabella, it was undoubtedly a new sensation. The soul is in the glabella. This was rather a preconceived notion to him. Hence he automatically related this sensation to be his soul. His heart palpitated in reaction at this sudden discovery. Tianlong bit his lips as he whispered to himself in Chinese, "All right, calm down me. If I think calmly and carefully, perhaps I will be able to make sense of this situation." He took a deep breath to calm himself down, but it wasn't enough. He had to empty his mind and take a few more breaths to calm down. Then, once his expression became quite calm, he started connecting the dots one by one. The death book was destroyed in the spatial tunnel, and I witnessed the scene with my eyes. I am sure of it. So what is this black thing in my soul that looks like a book? Is this the death book? It looks similar. Tianlong heavily bit his lips but then stopped, realizing that it might harm the child, but then recognized that it was just himself. Feeling conflicted, he then continued to think, but if the death book followed me into this world, then it should have been able to kill me after exiting the spatial tunnel and gaining this body. If it didn't kill me, then I was right. The death book is probably restricted by the laws of this world. Tianlong felt elated. He had relied on luck, and this basis of entering another world should either destroy or reset the death book. He had not been able to kill or manipulate animals with the death book, so it was within logic to think that the death book worked on some kind of principle, some kind of law within the set world. He was also prepared for the death book to not work in this world. Hence, he rather felt disbelief at its presence in his soul. This world probably needs time to detect the arrival of an unknown object, so the death book was able to fulfill the condition of me being able to obtain a weak body below 20 years old. But it wasn't able to kill me after the 5-minute time limit, meaning the death book should have either been intrinsically destroyed or reset according to the laws of this world. Then, if this black thing is the death book, how was it able to infuse into my soul? Is it because I am the current owner? Yup, this should be the case. It somewhat makes sense of the situation. Even though Tianlong had many doubts, he was somewhat able to make sense of this situation. Even though it could turn out as nonsense, he felt that he was not far from the truth. Tianlong got out of the bed, and just when he tried to walk, he fell. What? He tried to stand up, but he couldn't, so he crawled his way to the mirror at the corner of the room, using every ounce of strength that he could muster. How weak, he lamented, but was able to understand since he was in a child's body. He asked for a weak body so he would be able to possess the body easily, but it seems like for this child, he shouldn't have rather included that condition. He looked around 91 centimeters in height with fair skin, a pair of sapphire eyes that looks adorable, but his face seemed quite emaciated, sunken in along with his body. His short blonde hair was messy, and with a tiny frame that is normal for 3-year-old children, he looked not much different from a child who was not taken care of, an orphan. However, he looked clean without any dirt considering the circumstances he was in, probably taken care of by someone or the middle-aged person who looked after him, and also seemed to be the child's father at first glance. But now he felt that this child didn't resemble that person at all. A 2- or 3-year child, an orphan? I guess it's all right since I can perfectly blend into this environment. I don't know who you are, but sorry for possessing your body. I'm not going to make any excuses since I indirectly killed you. Tianlong didn't know that this child was in a coma from the time he was born and was going to die 3 days ago. He held complex feelings about killing an innocent child, but that didn't stop him from persisting to live his life. I swear that I will live your part as well. However, he felt ridiculous as a child became his first casualty in this world. After Gray left the room, he headed for the room where the captain stayed. Knock. Come in. A voice could be heard from inside the room. Creak. Gray opened the door and went inside, his footsteps creaking on the wooden plywood. Oh, Gray, what's the matter? Captain, it's time I left the mercenaries. There was a moment of silence in the room. Sigh. Did the 2-year period come to an end already? Time sure flies fast. The captain reminisced as he sighed. Yes, I thank you for taking care of me and the mercenaries. The compensation will be given once the people from the Empire comes to pick me up. Taking care of you? Protecting a man with a cultivation base higher than mine? You must be jesting. Is it the child? The captain chuckled. You've already figured it out? Gray uttered, but he didn't look surprised. I have been together with you for almost 2 years, yes. If I can't even figure that out, I should just retire from being a mercenary. Gray blinked and said, Good thing you told me this just now. If it were a month ago, I would have been forced to kill you. Is it an order? The captain wryly smiled. Yes. Gray inclined his head, replied as if it was a matter of fact. The Lorette imperial family sure is scary, considering that it managed to survive and execute the noble families who participated in the rebellion. What? The Lorette family has managed to quell the rebels? Yes, I just received this news 2 days ago. The captain nodded. Gray stood, shivering from excitement. From this, both of us have survived. Gray heaved a sigh of relief as he calmed down. Then I'll return to my quarters, Captain. All right. The captain sighed, once again at the thought of how he was going to lose his best and powerful subordinate. However, he knew that this was inevitable. Creak. Gray opened the door to his room and stepped in, but he almost got a heart attack. Where is the child? Gray instantly unsheathed his sword and quickly rushed inside in a panicked manner. Tianlong hurriedly turned back his head at the corner of the room and saw Gray rushing into the room. Ray Nolan, that's his name, huh? Seems like I still possess the Death God eyes. Then that means that I still have the Death Book with me. With this, Tianlong confirmed that he still had the Death Book with him, but he felt that it was best to say that the Death Book is within him. Ray Nolan heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the child was safe, albeit trying to do something. Ni-ye-ye-ye-del. Tianlong immediately started putting on an act with a cute face. Considering that I was sleeping in a bed, this guy should have been the one taking care of me. And it's not far-fetched for a 3-year-old orphan to not know how to talk. Ray Nolan immediately walked towards the child and carried him up. Will I get beheaded if they found out that the prince doesn't know how to talk? Ray Nolan got scared a little but then thought with clarity. Probably not. Tianlong had no idea what this guy was mumbling about because he still couldn't understand any of it. The Death God eyes displayed a person's name and lifespan, except the latter seemed to be displayed by a thread. Dude, please talk in a language I understand. Tianlong wished both sincerely and lamentably. Child, it's almost time for you to return to the Empire. And there, you can officially start learning the language of the world. Ray Nolan started lecturing and teaching the child, even though he knew that the child couldn't understand him because his life depended on it. The lecture continued for about 10 minutes, leaving Tianlong with a face full of black lines. After an hour, outside the Blue Tiger mercenary headquarters. Oi, look at the sky, a random person exclaimed. Where? A passerby stopped in his tracks and questioned. In the sky, a big silhouette could be seen above the clouds. It's a D-dragon, another person exclaimed. The dragon's going to destroy the town, everyone run. That person who exclaimed first fled in fear upon seeing such a silhouette. Idiot, that's a wyvern, another knowledgeable person commented after seeing the silhouette come down from above the clouds. The wyvern's wingspan stretched 12 meters long. It looked long-faced with a set of razor-sharp teeth in its mouth. Its tail thrashed around, creating gusts of wind that threw the people who were near off their footing. On its back was a middle-aged man dressed in shiny red armor. His face was valiant with vigor, and he exuded an aura that was capable of suppressing almost all of the people below him. Hence, none dared to shout at him. He scanned the area and spotted the Blue Tiger mercenary sign on a building. He promptly headed towards that building. The wyvern then complied and landed in front of the Blue Tiger mercenary headquarters. Captain of the Imperial Guards, Renard Nolan, orders the captain of the Blue Tiger mercenaries to come out. That man then shouted out loud, which shocked many people because of the fact that the man on the wyvern belonged to the Imperial Guards. What is the captain of the Imperial Guard doing out here? Many people started whispering to others. It wasn't just a random Imperial Guard, but the captain. If someone said there wasn't anything going on, then they wouldn't believe it even if they were tortured. The members of the Blue Tiger mercenaries didn't dare to lash back at him. They could only wait in silence as they waited for their captain to show up. To their luck, the captain hurriedly came out of the building and swiftly bowed to the captain of the Imperial Guard, Reinhard Nolan. "Noel of the Blue Tiger mercenaries, at your service." Noel inwardly sweated. Such a powerful person had come directly to their mercenary group. He thought to himself, "Whoa, our empire sure is establishing their authority all over the land." They didn't even bother to give him any face. Actually, why would they? Noel mocked himself. Is great. Before Reinhard Nolan can finish his sentence, he saw a male figure exit the building with a child on his back. Reinhard Nolan glanced at Noel and uttered with a satisfied glint in his eyes, "Good, you will surely be rewarded with plentiful riches." "It's been a long time, Ray." He smiled. Hearing the familiar and comforting voice, a smile crept upon Ray Nolan's face as well. "Yes, brother." Then the both of them bear-hugged casually and laughed heavily in an uproarious tone. "Is the Imperial Prince fine?" Reinhard Nolan's expression slightly turned anxious. "Yes, as you can see." Ray Nolan glanced at his back as he said. He then pursed his lips and inwardly cried as he thought back to the past 2 years. How am I supposed to say that the Imperial Prince was in a coma from the moment he was entrusted to me? Reinhard Nolan heaved a heavy sigh and nodded his head. "All right, let's leave this place then. Please do, I'm sick of this lifestyle." Ray Nolan laughed loudly, not displaying his worry. He then turned his head back and saw those misfits he had been together in these 2 years. "If you encounter any trouble, head to the Nolan family and mention my name, Ray Nolan." Ray Nolan smiled as he bid farewell. "See you later, Noel." Noel just stood there dumbfounded by this revelation. He thought to himself, all of them are big guys, and these two are from the Nolan noble family. I've struck it rich. When both of the brothers got on the Wyvern, Noel shouted, "Don't forget your words, Gray. No, Ray." "I won't," Ray Nolan smirked. He had an amicable relationship with Noel other than the fact that he was rather protective of his nephew Mel, but that was to be expected. He was still willing to treat him with respect. The Wyvern then flew to the skies heading towards the Imperial capital. 6 hours later, a huge wall could be seen in the distance. The walls were over 60 meters tall. "Finally, we reached the Imperial capital with the help of this speedy Wyvern." Ray Nolan spoke joyfully. The two had a lot to talk about, so they chatted the whole way, disregarding Tian Long. Meanwhile, Tian Long couldn't understand what they were saying, so he just gave up and enjoyed his first flight on the Wyvern. It was so fast, and the wind that slightly brushed past his face rather gave him a sense of exhilaration he hadn't experienced in a long while. Perhaps he even felt that the life-threatening spatial travel couldn't compare. The air resistance he experienced would have rather thrown him off the Wyvern. But the two who were in front of him casually disregarded the air resistance and passively helped him defend it from erecting a barrier. Ah, the air is so fresh in this world. The sceneries are so beautiful. Am I on vacation already? Tian Long felt that his choice to come to this world was the best one he had ever made. Luckily, his fate, which was usually terrible, didn't let him down this time, or that was at least how he felt. He didn't know where he was headed to, nor did he know if he would be safe in the future, but since they treated him with care, he thought he would be safe with the two of them. It's not like he could change his future right now, or do anything of significance in this wilderness below him, so he just went with the flow and didn't care to ponder a lot. The Wyvern swiftly passed above the walls without any obstructions and headed to the Imperial Castle. It then landed below the main entrance of the Imperial Castle. Numerous guards held their spears and grasped it tightly as they would always. They didn't even blink when the Wyvern landed in front of them, but they more or less displayed awe and respect within their eyes. At the same time, they were confused as to who that emaciated poor child was. The trio then entered the Imperial Castle without any impediments, as if they were the masters of this Imperial Castle. Tian Long could see the grandness of this place, and even without someone making him understand, he felt that he had arrived in some kind of royalty's residence. He also realized that he slightly had his mouth agape and closed it. Feeling rather embarrassed, he thought, "Is the child's young body influencing my emotions to a degree?" In this short time of experiencing and witnessing many things after coming to his world, he felt that rather have a hard time controlling his emotions, and the upheavals he felt wasn't anything small. This made his suspect that the child's developing body might be influencing his already established calm emotions. However, this was a new world, and it could also be possible that the inhibitions he had on his mind in the modern world had all disappeared. They arrived in front of the throne hall in a short time. Just as they were going to request the audience of the emperor, the door opened, and a young woman with an extraordinary bearing came out with a worried expression on her face. Tianlong was shocked when he saw this kingdom toppling beauty with luxurious and elegant bearings. Her 170 centimeters tall figure captivated his eyes. Her skin fair, with almond royal purple eyes like 2 drops of wine, illuminated her eyes. Her wavy waist-length blonde hair made her look gorgeous like an angel. Her face displayed a warm and graceful demeanor like a caring mother. Even then, she possessed a perfectly refined body with curves at the right places, making her look a little mature. The young woman looked toward the child who was in the middle, clasped hands with both the brothers. Her eyes widened in shock. Her lips slightly went agape as she slowly started running towards the child and hurriedly hugged him with all her affection. "You're safe. You're safe, thank goodness. I'm sorry that mother wasn't able to be with you all this time." The young woman started shedding tears of joy as she intensely shivered. Tianlong became dumbfounded as he felt being hugged by this woman. Even though he couldn't understand what she was saying, he could feel the warmth from the hug, which he never got to experience in his previous life. Is this woman the mother of this child? A thought encroached his mind. Hearing the ravings from the mother of this child, he was again invaded by complex feelings of guilt and sadness. He didn't know why, but he almost couldn't hold his tears from falling. He bit his lips and mused, is this also because of the child's developing body? A young man whose expression was full of joy for a fleeting moment can be seen behind the young woman who was currently hugging Tianlong. He appeared to be 180 centimeters tall, his skin fair with royal sapphire eyes that radiated a regal aura. His wavy waist-length black hair was lush as ink, his chin met with a short beard, and his shoulders were broad with some muscles, making him look quite manly and handsome. In short, he had a medium build, and his face looked remarkably attractive to women. "Finally, my son has returned safely," that young man uttered in a deep tone, displaying his grandeur. He produced a serious expression on his face, but the sapphire pupils appeared moist. The 2 brothers immediately got down on their knees. "We pay our respects to the emperor and the empress." They shouted in unison, "Good, stand up, follow me to the throne." The young man nodded and chose not to interfere with the mother and son reunion. Instead, he walked towards the throne and sat down. All of those who were in the throne hall bowed as they clasped hands to show respect to the emperor. Many of them held positions in the imperial court, administrating the empire's regions. "Lift your heads. Nolan, you've done a great task of protecting my son in the time of chaos. This emperor will bestow you with the title of Duke, a mid-level Earth-ranked city around the inner region, and 100 purple coins." It's my honor, Your Majesty, Ray Nolan obediently replied, but the reward he received rather made him feel that all his hardships were worth it, especially the mid-level Earth-rank city. Renard Nolan, you did a great job of escorting them back safely. It's a given, Your Majesty, Renard replied with his head still inclined below, displaying his reverence and obedience. At this time, the Empress walked into the throne hall carrying her child on her arms. Observing the Empress, the Emperor nodded his head and cast a glance at his grown but emaciated child. He furrowed his brows and asked, Ray Nolan, explain the events that took place when you were protecting my son. Yes, Your Majesty. Ray Nolan nodded and explained the events that took place during his secret mission without hiding anything. After approximately 20 minutes of explanation, and that's all, Your Majesty, Ray Nolan concluded his report. So, you are saying that my son just woke up 3 days ago? Hearing the question from the Emperor that was filled with suspicion and coldness, beads of sweat started to form on Ray Nolan's face as he gulped. I swear on my noble name that what I've said is the truth, Your Majesty, Ray Nolan declared in a fearful tone. There were a few moments of deathly silence in the throne hall, making the people inside feel fidgety and nervous. The Emperor abruptly tapped the armrest of the throne in a rhythm, making the ones who heard further gulp in suspense and anticipation. This matter concerns the well-being of my son. You won't blame me if I conduct investigations, right? The Emperor inquired in a rather stern tone. I wouldn't dare. It is only your right to check the health and environment your son lived in, Your Majesty, Ray Nolan tactfully said, and not at all was bothered by the suspicions cast on him. The royal prince was indeed in a coma all the time, but woke up just a few days before he sent them the signal to be picked up in 3 years' time. If he were the child's father, he felt that perhaps even he wouldn't believe his own words. Good, you're pardoned. Ray Nolan let out a sigh of relief when he was released from this not-so-offensive pressure. The Emperor pondered for a moment before commanding, Tonight, arrange a banquet. We're celebrating the return of my son, the Crown Prince of the Lorette Empire. Yes, Your Majesty, the people shouted in unison. The Emperor and Empress left the throne hall and made their way to a room in the Emperor's quarters, which was none other than their room. They too were the only ones in the room. Logan, I don't mind if the investigation is conducted or not, since it is advantageous to us that any strange or evil characters didn't influence our son, the Empress said as she kept looking at her child, who was none other than Tianlong. She was fine as long as her son was well and healthy. However, the way he currently looked rather made her heart feel distressed. Yes, but there are a lot of questions that are left unanswered, such as how our son, who was in fatal danger 3 days ago, managed to recover healthily. Is it a miracle, or did an unknown expert decide to save our son with unknown motives? If it was an unknown expert with good intentions, I'll be surely thankful to him even in death. On the other hand, you sent our son to an unknown place that I don't even know about, and you won't even tell me about it, the Empress coldly harumphed. Claire, I had no other choice but to do that. It is for the absolute safety of our son. Even I didn't know where I sent him, not until that messenger pigeon arrived from Ray Nolan. Logan told the truth. What? Claire received a shock and looked at Logan with an incredulous expression on her face. All this time you were saying that you knew where you sent our son and that he is safe? Suddenly she felt as if she understood everything. You did this all to just assure me? Claire's mouth became agape. Tears were welling up within her eyes. Yes, my love. Logan cupped her face gently and slightly caressed. They looked into each other's eyes, and their lips connected, slowly engaging in a passionate kiss. Half a minute passed in silence, yet to Tianlong, it was nothing but a trial. Garde to say ni. Tianlong couldn't stand it anymore. After all, he was still a virgin, and seeing a couple engage in such passion in such close range left him rather traumatized. Both of them were startled as they looked at their son and burst laughing, relief flooding their minds. After laughing till they were content, they hugged each other. I'm sorry, Claire whispered in a soft and embarrassed tone. It's fine. I know how much you suffered during this period. Logan comforted her as he caressed her blonde hair. But I was stupid, heartless. All this time I ignored you. I know I was doing wrong. You didn't even look at other women, but I stopped paying heed to you. Tears started cascading her cheeks as it fell onto her luxurious robes. It's my fault. Any mother would be angry if her child were to be taken away from her. Logan hurriedly placated her. Claire felt guilty because she blamed everything that happened to her and her son on Logan and ignored him for almost 3 years. After a few minutes of warmth, both of them then distanced from each other awkwardly. It was them reacting to their reaction of the lower part of their bodies and their son's gaze. Ha ha! Logan awkwardly laughed. Claire's face was red as she smiled embarrassingly, enchanting him as if she wore a bewitching smile. Logan was in a trance seeing her beautiful blushed face. He would have already jumped on her if it weren't for the child that curiously kept gazing at them. It was more like he had been intently staring at them. I feel sorry, but I won't let you guys do anything in front of me. Can you guys please do it somewhere else? Tianlong wished so because didn't have any strange fetishes. Cough, cough. Our child must be educated in the ways of imperial mannerisms. I'll arrange it now. Logan coughed and took another approach. No, I'll be the one to teach our child, Claire hurriedly shouted. Huh? And Claire narrowed her eyes. I won't take no for an answer. 3 years. I wasn't with my child for 3 years. We missed the bonding period. I'm not sure if the child will wholeheartedly even accept us as his parents. Therefore, I will be with him until he finishes his education. Logan was dumbfounded. He realized that he had fallen to his machinations. His expression was something quite profound to behold. He buried himself with his plan and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Claire and Logan readied Tianlong with a royal outfit. They didn't require the help of servants because this was the first time they were dressing Tianlong, their son. Tianlong felt embarrassed when Claire removed his pants, but he realized that he was still a child. It made him even more ashamed about having dirty thoughts. He then kept reminding himself that she is his mother, which he still hasn't come to terms with yet. Logan laughed when he saw him resisting a little, obviously misunderstanding with something else. However, he also felt a little doubtful as to why a child who knew nothing would feel shame in the first place, but he didn't give it too much thought. Tianlong had complex feelings about being taken care of by a mother figure, which he never experienced in his previous life. He felt warm and cozy somehow, and he even secretly liked it. In any case, with a body that hadn't much nutrition, he rather felt that he could do nothing at this point, like pushing them away. Neither did he do something stupid so as to make them realize that he was not their son, and someone else. They then picked him up and went to the banquet hall. Your subordinates greet your majesty. When the people saw the emperor advancing into the banquet hall, they stood up, bowed, and shouted in unison. At ease, my subjects, Logan acknowledged in a firm tone. Everyone then took their seats. This banquet is to celebrate the return of my son and the continuation of our prosperous empire. Glory to the Lorette Empire. Logan lifted his drink and drank, commemorating the start of the banquet himself. Glory to the Lorette Empire. The subjects also drank their cups. Everyone enjoyed the banquet in high spirits. The spirit drinks and cooked meats were delicious, and the castle maids who were dressed up in classical robes were rather a sight to see as they danced. After some time, the banquet was about to end. Your Majesty, isn't this the best time for that? The royal advisor Hendrickson commented. I guess it is. Logan superficially muttered and announced, Everyone, it is time for the main event of this banquet. The people in the banquet went silent as the banter calmed down. Logan looked at Claire, who was seated by his side. Both of them nodded together. I, the Emperor of Lorette Empire, Logan Lorette, hereby declare that the name of the first prince, my son, to be Davis Lorette. Ah, glory to the empire, long live Davis Lorette, an official suddenly exclaimed. Everyone looked at Tianlong and started chanting his name loudly, which made the banquet end in high spirits. Today was also his 3rd birthday. From that moment, even without understanding the language, Tianlong knew that he had been given a new name, Davis Lorette. The next day, daylight rose, illuminating the Lorette Empire's imperial capital. Tianlong had been extremely tired yesterday, so he slept in the room that was assigned to him, and after making sure he slept, she stayed with him for a few hours, looking at his face before she finally left him. After waking up, Tianlong could guess where she went and was cheering about it since he inwardly started shipping them from yesterday. In any case, with their robes adorning them and the throne hall, it didn't take him much to learn that they should be the king and perhaps the queen, or the greater counterpart, the emperor and the empress. The door suddenly opened, and he could see a middle-aged woman dressed in imperial maid clothes enter the room. She bowed with a respectful stance for a second and walked to him. "Excuse me, Your Highness." As if giving a word of caution, she belatedly grasped his hand and brought him to the bath, undressed him, and cleaned him. Tianlong was stiff the whole time. He didn't even glance at the middle-aged woman maid for a long time, since her curves were rather wet and visible through her clothes. He looked at her face and saw that she was in beauty in her own right. Such a person happens to be a maid? Tianlong imagined by the way she dressed similarly to the other women in this place. Except it was somewhat more different, perhaps, grander. After he was cleaned and dressed up, he felt rather refreshed, way more than what he would feel by experiencing a normal bath. In short, his senses became somewhat normal, and the muddle-headed feeling totally left his mind. Was the bathtub filled with something rejuvenating? I remember it smelled strange, Tianlong imagined. The middle-aged imperial maid grasped his hands and made their way to the study. In the study, Claire stood up and eagerly waited for her son to show up. Due to certain matters, she had rather failed to bath her son by herself. So she took a bath and freshened up before coming here. Creak! The door opened, and the maid let go of Tianlong. From inside, he saw the person whom he recognized to be his mother. She smiled genuinely and widened her arms when she saw him. "Davis Lorette, come to mother." Tianlong was astonished to see her act cute like this. This person is supposed to be the queen or the empress, isn't she? He quickly hid his bewilderment and kept his appearance as a 3-year-old child. He rather watched her curiously, not responding to her invitation. Claire then repeated what she said with another gesture. Tianlong then carefully and slowly approached like how a baby learned to walk for the first time. He was not acting, but it was really hard to move his body that hadn't moved from birth. He didn't know that, but chalked it up as his soul synchronizing with this child's body. Claire was with wide arms, ready to give a hug. Tianlong made his way to her and got enclosed by that warm feeling again. She hugged him tightly and wished that he will never disappear from her sight again. Creak! The door was closed, and the imperial maid left the study. A minute passed, yet they stayed like that. Tianlong rather felt somewhat different, yet not at all constricted. A feeling of wanting to cry welled up within him, completely making him understand that this child's developing body was somehow influencing him, his emotions. Perhaps I fused with this child's soul, no? Tianlong gulped as he rather had an eerie thought. Davis, your mother will take care of you and guide you from now on in almost everything. Let's start from the basics. Shall we? Claire widened her lips slightly and smiled like an angel. Tianlong blinked as he suddenly felt that she had the sweetest smile in the world, so bright yet calm. She grasped his hand and made him sit on a chair. Then, as if without a care in the world, she started teaching him the language of the world. A week had now passed, and Tianlong was already able to run and play. There were so many delicacies within this place, and he ate all which he was fed, and he felt rejuvenated with each bite. The quality of the food alone was enough to make him look no longer like a starved child, but a healthy child. He was even fed a little bit of meat, which he found to be incredibly delicious than almost every dish he had on earth. Other than this, his progress in the language of this world was smooth. He could now understand simple conversations. The imperial maids will deliver him food thrice a day, and a bed had been set up in the study. In fact, he was the one who requested his mother to do so. Knowledge is the foremost power he could have in this world. In any case, with his current developing body, becoming strong like the others he saw in this imperial castle became impossible. Hence, absorbing knowledge became his priority. As a person who was closely related to the term transmigration and possession, he wasn't willing to waste his time. Tianlong realized that he was absorbing knowledge unusually fast, being able to remember it clearer than in the past, but he chalked it up as his soul is powerful. His guess was accurate this time, though he didn't realize it. The transmigration stone strengthened his soul. In fact, it was its primary effect, but the people of Earth didn't found the way to achieve soul strengthening. Tianlong started to like this new mother of his significantly. She cared for him rather extremely and played with him whenever he completed his assignment. He enjoyed playing with her, and maybe it was because of the small body, but he felt like a child when he was with her. He was also aware that his emotions had largely experienced a change, and his thoughts were also being influenced. Due to this, he had particularly tried finding anything wrong with his soul as best as he could, but failed to find any abnormalities other than the anomaly, the black book in his soul. Davis, finish this assignment and then we can play a game I've prepared. Yes, mother, Davis cheerfully replied, continuing to act like a child. Not only did she play with him every once in a while, but she also showered him with wonderful motherly love. He didn't know what had happened to her in the past, but he could tell she was currently giving her everything for him. Updated from No VLB Seu. To reciprocate her kindness and also to become a knowledgeable person, he didn't slack on these assignments. This is going smoother than we expected. My son can quickly learn anything I teach. He is definitely a genius. Claire smiled proudly as she felt that she was able to measure Tianlong's talent approximately. Another week had passed, except it felt increasingly slow to Tianlong. He had somehow started to grow fond of his mother. He was now able to talk, read, and write fluently. His knowledge of the language progressively increased at a rapid pace with his hard work. But somewhere in his heart, he started having guilty feelings of being this close with the dead Davis's mother. Sometimes he could even feel his inner self whispering to him, "You killed her son. Why are you laughing together with her? Is it fun, playing with the mother of the child you killed? You think she is your mother? No, you just possess her son's body. Stop it. Davis." Claire had a worried expression on her face. Tianlong snapped out it and remembered what had happened. His mother had just joked about how she would have felt if he had died out there. "Are you fine?" Claire worriedly asked. Tianlong evaded her gaze and answered, "Yes, it's nothing." Claire blinked once as she felt that her son became somewhat different. Another week further passed. Tianlong gradually started distancing himself from Claire. He wouldn't sometimes play after finishing his assignments. He just solely finished her assignments and increased his knowledge of the language. Claire grew increasingly worried about her son not being that much responsive anymore. What's wrong? Why did he start distancing himself from me? Did I do something wrong? It can't be because of how I joked about him dying, could it? Claire thought that she had done something wrong. Later she felt that he would eventually be his old self again as time passed. The fourth week, a lot of events transpired, yet Tianlong forgot how to face his mother with a normal expression on his face. He became irrational and even started blaming himself when he saw Claire being overly worried. On the one hand, he felt that he didn't deserve this kind, a heartwarming mother for the wrong he had done to her child, and on the other hand, he felt that he should make his mother happy. These conflicting emotions had his heart tearing apart from the inside. It also made him confused as to how to face her in the future. These were all new emotions to him, as he didn't have a father or a mother figure in the past, as he was an orphan. In the study, Davis, a voice full of longing, echoed in Tianlong's ears. "Mother." Tianlong glanced at Claire for a second before evading her gaze for the nth time. Just the sight of her pure and clear purple eyes rather left him feeling burdened. He even thought of escaping this place, but every time he shortly left the study, he could see the Imperial guards rather heavily guarded every pathway and hallway. "Look at me, Davis," Claire pleaded with a troubled expression on her face. Tianlong slowly turned to look back at her. "Did Mother do something wrong? Why aren't you speaking to Mother anymore?" Claire bit her lips as her eyes turned moist. Tianlong remained silent. "Is the place not good? Did I treat you wrongly? Is it because I joked about your death?" Tianlong felt suddenly unbearable as he heard her tone of voice. He felt his heart constrict with pain on hearing what his mother said. Claire still didn't know why her son was avoiding her. This had caused her much more pain than the time he disappeared. Looking at him be in front of her, yet behave as he did not exist, left her feeling anxious and distressed. Tianlong remained silent like a child ridden with guilt. How could he not feel guilt? Even though it may not be direct but indirect, he still killed her son. And that was something he would not make an excuse for, or even ignore it. He swore that he would live the life of his part as well, but he didn't rather expect this scenario at all. Looking at his face, Claire took a deep breath. "After I lost you, I thought I would never see you again. I had no wish in this world other than for you to return safely. Every day without you was torture to me. I thought I had lost you forever, but you returned. My child returned to me, studied with me, played with me, and so why?" Claire sobbed. "Why are you not speaking to Mother anymore?" Tianlong was overwhelmed with guilt after hearing that, making his pupils tremble. Claire suddenly hugged her son forcibly. Tian Long tried to distance himself from her, but it was no use. His meager strength didn't even make him capable of budging. Davis, don't go. Please talk to Mother. I want my Davis back. Please give my Davis back. Claire cried as tears cascaded down her cheeks while her arms were hugging him with all her emotions. I can't take it anymore. It was as if Tian Long experienced a severe blow when he was hit with all these sensations. Mother! He felt his heartache and clenched his fists. Ah! I won't run from this anymore. He instantly hugged her with his fragile arms and declared with a hoarse voice, Your Davis is here, Mother. Your Davis didn't go anywhere. I am still here. At that moment, Tian Long accepted his whole new identity, Davis Lorette, with all his heart. Suddenly, resplendent light shone and started swirling around Davis's glabella while his soul started shaping itself into a spherical form. Claire noticed it as her eyes widened, displayed shock. She couldn't believe her own eyes as she looked at his face that was met with confusion. Davis, you achieved NNAS, nascent soul stage, she dumbfoundedly muttered. After a few minutes of pause, Davis opened his eyes. He couldn't fathom what had happened just now, but he could certainly feel the change intrinsically. It was as if his soul started growing and attained a shape all of a sudden. He could also tell that he could recall his past memories as vividly as if he was currently experiencing it. This made him quite stunned. Claire wiped off Davis's tears and smiled proudly. You've made Mom proud, Davis. Wait, I cried. Davis couldn't understand what exactly took place in his soul just now, but decided to ask since he felt compelled to know. Mother, what happened to me just now? Davis, you just advanced to the nascent soul stage, Claire exclaimed jubilantly. Her tone contained an enormous amount of disbelief, but at the same time, she sounded immensely gratified. Nascent soul stage? What is that? Davis had some idea about it since he heard of it while studying, but decided to ask anyway. Claire giggled. Silly for this, you need to know about the cultivation system. Let me explain it to you slowly. Davis got excited to learn about it. He had seen magical beasts like that wyvern and other magical beasts and even people flying outside the imperial castle. It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't interested in it. There are 3 types of cultivation systems. Claire started to explain. First, essence gathering cultivation. Second, body tempering cultivation. And third, soul forging cultivation. Claire grinned and pointed over his forehead. What you achieved just now is the first stage of soul forging cultivation, nascent soul stage. What you've done is a quite unbelievable feat, Davis. Usually, only people who had reached the 3rd stage of essence gathering cultivation system, revolving core stage, will be able to advance in their soul forging cultivation because a human soul is rather weak. You can't sense it, not until you reach the revolving core stage. Davis felt the difficulty of achieving this feat in his age with her words, but considering his real age, or perhaps his soul age, he felt that it should be set in stone for him. Source of this content, NOVLBN. But even if it were a 100-year-old mortal, that mortal wouldn't still be able to sense their soul. Davis could guess this fact, but he had failed to consider it. In fact, Davis was only able to reach the nascent soul stage because of 2 conditions: his powerful soul due to the transmigration stone's strengthening effect, and the fact that he had managed to conquer his heart demon that he currently had no idea about. Davis took a moment to understand what she said. Davis, Claire called out to her son with a solemn expression. He woke out of his trance. Did you awaken your previous life's memories? Boom. Davis looked like a cat that had its tail stepped on. He immediately took a step back as it has been totally unexpected for him. Or should he say that he had rather failed to consider while taking in all this new knowledge and let his guard down? Claire immediately embraced him again, not letting him go. It's fine, Davis. You don't have to say anything. You're still my son. This doesn't change anything. She hurriedly comforted him. Mother, I'm sorry. Davis started to cry as tears fell over his cheeks. He could only let her misunderstand the situation. There was no use lying since the suspicion was already cast on him, and he had slipped up. Seeing that Davis was crying, Claire smiled. She was reassured that it was still her son and not some old demon from ancient times. With how pure his emotions were, she felt that it could not be faked, at least not easily faked. They stayed like that for the time being. Perhaps both were feeling insecure. After a few moments of mother-son bonding, Davis decided wholeheartedly to be her son, both in body and soul, as it didn't sit well with him to cheat a pure soul. At least he felt that's the least he could do for the dead Davis. Davis, let's call your father here and explain ourselves to him, shall we? Claire included herself in Davis's situation. But if he wanted to hide this fact to his last breath, she wanted to respect his privacy. Mother, is it fine? Won't father get angry? Davis had his misgivings. If more people knew about this fact, then his life could be in danger. Davis's father, Logan, had visited him a few times to play with him, albeit stricter, because he wanted his son to be headstrong while facing hardships. Davis rather felt that his father had many burdens on his shoulders, so they weren't able to bond to the level of what he and Claire reached. Your father will get angry only if you don't tell him. If you come out with it, he will start believing and trust you to a certain extent. In truth, he is an easygoing person and not stern at all. If you don't tell him, he may entirely distrust you because you simply have no way to hide your cultivation for now. Claire explained with the best intentions in her mind. She also believed that Logan would trust her words and not harm Davis. I'll obey mother then. Davis spoke sadly with an adorable expression on his face. He believed that even if the situation goes south, perhaps, his mother would protect him. The way he saw it, though the emperor seemed to be the person with the greatest status, he treated the figurehead empress, his mother, as his equal, and was also in head over heels for her. Lovely. Claire pinched his face as if she couldn't get enough of that cute expression. Claire then contacted her husband through a fist-sized crystal, telling him that she wants to see him immediately. Mother, what is that? This is a transmission crystal. This is used to contact whoever owns the other half. There are many types of crystals. I'll explain them later to you. Hearing her explanation, Davis nodded his head. A few seconds later, Logan opened the door to the study and closed it. He possessed a stern expression on his face. However, his expression suddenly became jovial. Ha 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 ha, what is it, my love? What is so important that you made me hurry here alone? Logan then noticed his son's peculiar gaze and then turned shocked. Nascent soul stage? He couldn't believe his senses. Davis and Claire looked at each other and nodded their heads. Logan promptly noticed the solemn atmosphere in the room. Logan, Davis and I have something important to tell you, Claire informed with a calm expression on her face. You and Davis? Let me hear it then. Logan then set up a barrier made up of his soul force, knowing that it's important. Soul force was none other than the type of energy born from the essence of the soul. The further a person increased his soul forging cultivation, the further that person's soul force would improve and be enhanced, becoming stronger. Claire then explained a series of events that happened a few minutes ago. So, you are saying that our son has gained his previous life's memories? Logan possessed a strange expression on his face. Basically, yes. Claire had a helpless expression. There was a moment of silence, albeit heavily awkward. Logan took a deep breath. He then looked at Davis, but his gaze wasn't one of looking at a son anymore. He released a heavy pressure that stemmed from his soul. Davis trembled. His father's gaze was sharp, and the sudden pressure engulfed him heavily. He felt as if his soul in his glabella was suppressed, making him unable to even move his finger. Logan, Claire defended her child as she stepped forward. Stay quiet. I only want to question him for now. Logan's expression wasn't as stable as he waved his arm. It startled Claire to a great degree. Who are you? Logan questioned in a solemn tone. Davis. Davis replied without much change to his expression. He had expected this after all. He felt that even he would do the same, confirming whatever he doubted with his own methods. Lies. What are you after? Father, I'm not after anything. Davis had tears forming in his eyes inadvertently. He was not after anything, and his undeveloped body had rather failed to keep his emotions in check after getting berated and accused falsely by the one he recognized as the father. Don't call me father. Logan rather had a heavy expression on his face. Father, please, Davis muttered. He didn't want to create any kind of estrangement between the three of them. He had an aggrieved expression on his face. He felt as if he couldn't take this anymore. Logan, you've gone too far, Claire shouted with an angry expression on her face. Logan sighed as he took back his pressure and retracted his gaze. He looked at him again. His gaze was back to like what one would look at a son. At least tell me if you were a mortal or a higher existence such as a cultivator or even higher? I'm a mortal. After a moment of silence, Davis chose to reply without averting his gaze. His gaze shone pure with no evil intentions. Logan could feel Davis's soul fluctuations along with the feeling behind his words. If he lied, then he would know about it. There were no unusual fluctuations in his soul, so he could at least verify in a sense that his son wasn't lying. Perhaps only seasoned liars would be able to control their soul fluctuation, but he wanted to not see his son as one of them. Logan heaved a sigh of relief. He carried Davis into his arms and whispered, "I'm sorry. I could only do this for the safety of our family." Davis nodded his head, not taking it to heart. He knew that his father took action based on family security and must be very worried about his son. He knew that his father's past was extremely complicated and even heavy, to say the least. Claire walked towards them as she felt heartened. The family then hugged each other, perhaps not feeling well about their insecurities. Their hug was heartwarming, and it was the best comfort they felt that they could experience now. "Husband, you took your prank too far," Claire teased Logan as she tried to lessen the heavy and awkward atmosphere. "I know. I'm sorry." Logan chose to end the embarrassing yet important topic right then and there. There were just too many myths in this world for him to ignore his son's abnormality. As far as he knew, no one had managed to break through into the nascent soul stage when they were just 3 years old, and that too, without even breaking into the revolving core stage. He felt that his son was an absolute anomaly in this world. Hence, he wanted to absolutely make sure that his son, who seemed to regain his previous life's memories, wasn't a threat. Honestly, he didn't know how to face his son anymore. He even felt awkward lifting up his son, feeling that his son could have once been an old man. But when he looked at his son's face and eyes, which awfully resembled him and had his mother's blonde hair, there was no doubt in his eyes that Davis was his son, their son. Besides, he had already confirmed it in the bloodline chamber after his son's return. Davis suddenly laughed a bit, causing them to laugh along with a sense of not knowing what's going to happen anymore. Ha ha ha. The three of them laughed together like they were an ordinary family, but their laughs did indeed soothe their current awkward situation. Davis felt quite embarrassed to shed tears at the same time, but presumed it was because of the child's undeveloped body. It would make sense since he hadn't fully mastered the child's emotional reactions. "When was the last time I cried when I was on Earth? 10 years ago? 15 years ago?" he mused. Although he felt guilty of not telling the truth, he perceived that he had killed their son. He was happy as long as they think there is another Davis inside their son. This would help him remove the guilty feelings that he had for hiding this matter entirely, though they misunderstood his situation. It was similar to what they understood other than the part where they do not know that he had accidentally killed or taken over their child. In actuality, he wanted to maintain this status quo. Claire suddenly had a change of expression over her face, as if she couldn't hold it in anymore. She hurriedly went to the restroom as she hid her mouth with her palm. "Mother, Claire!" Both of them shouted in worry. Sounds of vomiting could be heard from inside the bathroom, and after some time, Claire came out with a shy expression on her face. "Looks like I'm pregnant." "Good." Logan widened his eyes in glee. He was trembling in excitement after being stunned for a moment. "Ah, does this mean I'll be getting a brother or sister?" Davis never had any siblings in his life on Earth, at least to his knowledge. He was an orphan. He was dumbfounded and conflicted, but at the same time, delighted when he heard it. Claire knew that she was conceived the moment she slept with Logan after a long time, but she hid it from him since she wanted it to keep it a secret, as a surprise. She didn't know if her new baby is a boy or a girl, but with her senses, she will be able to tell within a few weeks, but she wouldn't let anyone reveal that surprise or reveal it by herself till the time of delivery. This was one of the joys in the pregnancy she wanted to experience, a feeling that is only unique to her and other women. She approached them while coming out of the restroom, yet suddenly, she collapsed. "Mother, whoosh, Claire!" Logan moved rather quickly and held her from falling to the ground. Davis wasn't even able to see how his father moved. It was as if he disappeared and appeared beside his mother. He felt a bit shocked by his father's prowess. His title as the Emperor isn't just for show, he mused. I'm fine. I just feel dizzy," Claire explained as she creased her blonde brows. "Enough. You need some rest, Claire." Logan's eyes had ounces of care, but his expression and tone were rather stern. He turned to look at his son and uttered, "Davis, your mother needs some rest." "I understand," Davis spoke rather quickly and nodded his head. Women became quite weak when they got pregnant, even if they possessed powerful cultivation. It was a widely known fact, but Davis didn't know about it. Since this was the first sign of pregnancy, Claire felt quite weak and exhausted at the same time. The castle maids had no way of knowing or predicting since Claire was with Davis most of the time and only left at night to meet with Logan after Davis slept. "No need to worry, Davis. Mother will soon come back to you," Claire comforted him. It was as if her love for him was boundless, regardless if he had gained his previous memories or not. "I'll be waiting, Mother." Davis nodded again. Davis then watched them leave the study. He watched their backs as they disappeared from his sight and left him alone. Davis, vaguely yet softly, laughed. "Ha, sha, ha. I gained rather some loving parents in this world, and on top of that, I am going to get a younger sibling too? It's something I can't get even if I wished for. I can only hope that I won't do anything stupid to disrupt this loving family." Davis sighed as he thought about the future. What's this?" Suddenly, Davis felt that he could now faintly access that black book that delved in his soul. He had no way of nudging it in the past, which rather left him helpless, but now. Was it due to him entering the so-called nascent soul stage? Should I try using it? Davis felt tempted, but he held himself back. No, I shouldn't do anything suspicious while being still in the Imperial Castle. Father did set up some kind of barrier here, so perhaps he or other people might be able to monitor this place. What Davis didn't know was that the study already had a barrier, a defensive formation set up normally to defend against attacks. It's just that Logan had set up a stronger barrier than that, useful for concealing sound and undulations of a person's cultivation. Other than that, Davis didn't know that there were always hidden experts protecting him in secret. In the quarters of the Empress's room, Logan made Claire rest in her bed. He looked at her with a gentle gleam in his eyes. Claire looked back at him with love and tenderness. These two had gone through life and death situations together when they met, fought, loved each other under different circumstances, and lastly, before the rebellion, they united. Their story was perhaps the most transcendental one in this world since they were far apart. During the rebellion, even though Claire had ignored Logan for 3 years due to the blame she cast on him that he had lost Davis, he didn't fancy any woman other than her. He was totally smitten and deeply in love with her. With his status as the emperor, if he so wished, he could have had hundreds of concubines. But he chose not to do so, even going as far as to publicly announce that anyone who tries to coerce him into marrying another woman would be dealt with severely, and there were truly such cases as well. Claire happened to see it with her own eyes. "Logan, Davis is our son," Claire suddenly uttered as a worried expression appeared on her face. "I know." Logan deeply sighed. "No matter what, possessing his previous life's memories or not, he is still our son. I won't do anything to him." Claire became confused. "Then why did you? What if he was an evil person in his previous life?" Logan moved the corner of his lips into a helpless expression. "He's not, and there's no way my son will be evil even in his previous life," Claire responded with a stubborn gaze. "That's why I wanted to make sure," Logan calmly explained. "The Lorette family highly values peace and honor and wouldn't stoop far to do evil and despicable deeds. Lorette Empire was the only empire in the Grand Sea continent which didn't wage war with other empires. Its adjacent empires were in a state of war, and that's why it didn't get attacked by other empires during its internal unrest. Although its peaceful times has caused certain backstabbers to rise in rebellion, it had remained as powerful as ever. But it had let its guard down. The cause of the rebellion was like more of an opportunity. The death of the previous emperor, Logan's imperial father, proved to be a timely opportunity to assassinate and massacre the entire imperial family. Except for Logan, almost all the members of the imperial family who were in the capital were assassinated. As for those who were outside, they too were monitored and hunted. That's why Logan took immediate measures to send away his only son, entrusting the task to Ray Nolan, the next head of a noble family who were in their camp. There were 8 noble families in the Lorette Empire altogether. Only 2 noble families didn't take part in the rebellion, while the other remaining 6 noble families completely joined forces to eliminate the imperial family. The two noble families then joined the imperial family camp to help quell the rebellion. These two noble families were called the Nolan family and Kaldon family. Of course, at the end of the rebellion, the 6 noble families were either annihilated by the Lorette Empire's army Logan rallied, or locked up in a rather special prison set up for complete execution after the higher-ups of the 6 families were killed. Only the heads of the 2 noble families, the Farnwen family and Hawkwood family, managed to escape with severe injuries. Making Claire rest, he then left Claire's room and went to the throne hall to announce the pregnancy matter. His subjects congratulated him and praised him. He felt rather awkward. Even though he was the emperor, he had not received teachings on how to be an emperor because he was 5th in line to the throne, the 5th prince in the past. He liked to be free and unrestrained, but had no choice other than to be an emperor. He could only take this position because his family in the capital was entirely annihilated. Only his 7th and 8th brother were alive, and somewhere out there, perhaps, adventuring in a danger zone, but he didn't have the means to contact them either. Perhaps they had lost their lives without even having their corpses intact. Such cases weren't uncommon as well, but from his investigations, the rebelled noble families seemed to have no idea about these 2 brothers of his, hence causing him to have some hope. Logan had lost too much in this internal war, and he utterly hated the 6 noble families for it. He wished he could find and kill the 2 heads of the Farnwen family and Hawkwood family who had escaped. His only support was his wife, Claire. Then his son Davis became his heir. But now, he felt distanced himself from his son. Even things have grown awkward between the 3 of them. Hence, he rather felt ridiculous for it. Somewhere in his heart, he felt that he should make this right. So at night, after much deliberation, he decided to visit his son Davis. Davis was in the study. He was still in the mood to learn about this world and hence had his gaze concentrated on one of the many books that were stored in the bookshelves here. The child's body had influenced him greatly, and he was well aware of that. Even if he had a yearning for familial love in the past, it didn't mean that he wanted it now. But he unexpectedly got a loving family through the child's body he had possessed, and even swore that he would live his portion. He felt that he should not disappoint this family, at least for the sake of the child he possessed. However, he had his own determination after all, or one could say that he directed his focus on other matters rather than to think about the earlier event. Knock. Davis. A voice could be heard from the other side of the door, updated from No VLB Einziel. It didn't sound stern but hesitant. Father. Davis turned back and stood up. He narrowed his eyes, feeling rather confused as to why his father would visit at this time, but the earlier event made him quickly realize. Logan opened the door and entered as he looked around. There were a lot of books, stacked rows and rows upon the bookshelves. You are still studying at this time? Logan found a topic that he could start on. Davis nodded. I see. Are you fine? Davis again nodded. A few words were exchanged, but perceiving that the conversation isn't going anywhere, Logan felt even more awkward. He then decided to be direct. Davis, about the matter Earl, can I speak? Davis suddenly interrupted. Logan paused for a moment before nodding his head. Go ahead. Davis took a deep breath before moving his lips. Father, it's true that I am my own self, but it still will not change the fact that I am your son. In my previous life, I didn't have any parents nor siblings. I was just an orphan. I lived my whole life alone without any familial love. I didn't even have anyone to accompany me in that life, and I lived alone in solitude. If you want me to go, then I will immediately leave this place. Inadvertently, his eyes turned moist. But it's juice. It's just that, can I also be a part of this family? Tears fell out of his eyes while he possessed a gaze that was full of longing for familial love. Logan kneeled and held his son's shoulders. You are a part of this family. He strongly replied, his eyes full of resolve and commitment for the future. The next day, Mother? Davis! Claire expressed her astonishment as her face changed into one of affection. She initially thought that she wouldn't be able to see him for a while since the earlier event felt rather forced. Davis obtained permission from his father to meet his mother. Although things were fine now, the matters of the heart are difficult to comprehend. It remained difficult for his father to accept the status quo immediately. As for when he will accept Davis wholeheartedly, only time will tell. Mother, how are you? Seeing that Claire was genuinely happy seeing him, he knew it was fine for him to act like a child again. Although there was no need for pretense, he felt that he should be like this and not act out of character. The image of a 3-year-old child acting as if he knew it all would rather embarrass him even more and would be so out of place in reality. "Davis, you don't know how I missed you. Come here, let me give you a kiss." Claire beckoned. Davis approached closer to Claire, and he got a peck on his forehead. He further realized that the previous event didn't cause any estrangement between the two of them. Perhaps she was doing this exactly to not let any difference come between them. Looking at her treating him the same way she treated him before knowing that he gained his previous memories, Davis inwardly became heartened. After that, Davis talked to his mother about what happened with his father. "It's good that you two talked it through, Davis. Mother will only be accompanying you for a few months. Let me give you an amulet. What's this?" The amulet was bright purple, glistening like a gem. "It's an accessory that is capable of hiding your soul forging cultivation. Have it worn on you always," Claire said with a serious expression on her face. Davis became extremely touched, but a moment later he realized that he was duped by his mother yesterday. He discerned that he could have used this amulet to hide his soul forging cultivation from his father. He decided to play a little joke on her to get back at her. "Hey, mother, am I getting a little monster?" "Little monster, eh?" Claire became momentarily confused before realizing it. You dare to say that your little sibling is a monster?" Claire made a face full of fake anger while smiling. Davis instantly rose to the air and floated. "Whoa!" "What, mother?" He struggled in the air. "Now that I remember that I haven't given you any punishment since you always seem to complete assignments way before time, this is a good opportunity for me to teach you a lesson," Claire said teasingly. Davis realized that Claire was using this opportunity to be perhaps closer to him. His lips upturned, and a cute yet pitiful expression emerged on his face, which immediately made Claire reluctant to give any punishment. She made Davis come closer as she opened her arms to hug him. Davis immediately thought that his act worked. When he came closer, Claire made him bend around. "Eh, Mom? Slap. Ah!" Davis cried out in pain and shock. "You think you can get out of this just by playing innocent?" Claire scoffed as a grin emerged on her face. "Slap, slap, slap." Davis got his small butt slapped so hard that it turned red behind the small robes he wore. Find new stories on Nov.com. Those slaps were truly painful but tolerable. Damn, I stepped on a landmine, Davis thought. Now he knew how much she truly loved her kids. Playing a bad joke on her had instead backfired on him. It had been a miscalculation on his part. Davis, who had only seen Claire's affectionate side, failed to see her scary side. "She is still the Empress, for heaven's sake." "Mother, I'm sorry," Davis cried out with a fake apology. "Good. You should have said this earlier." Claire smiled with a smug expression on her face before giggling. "Looks like I have to teach you manners as well, you naughty child." "I hear and obey, Your Majesty," Davis said while making an adorable face. "You only know how to joke." Claire tried to spank Davis again. Davis immediately struggled away from her grasp and ran away from her. "Ha! You can't catch me. Come back." Claire saw his small stature disappear from her view before a smile unknowingly lit up her face. 3 months passed. Every day was filled with joy for Claire and Davis. Not only did she teach him more about this world, but she also played together as well as studied together with him for 3 whole months. Then various tutors were assigned to Davis, who then all diligently taught him. There were not many eligible imperial tutors since most of them were killed along with the imperial family, or executed for taking the side of the rebels. Hence, most of them were new tutors who concentrated on topics like history, geography, and other subjects relevant to the cultivation world. Claire was officially ordered by the emperor to rest for the remaining 6 months. Of course, whenever Davis had time, he went to visit his mother almost every day. Davis needed to act like a child in front of everyone except his mother and father. His father and mother permitted him to do that. In fact, they even laughed behind him. They had to admit that his acting skills were quite excellent. 6 months passed. Logan was walking to and fro with a stiff expression on his face. Although nothing would happen to Claire, he was no longer sure after a monster like Davis was born. He inadvertently started thinking about all possible worst-case scenarios. Father, Davis, who was beside him, shouted, "Don't worry. Nothing will happen to Mother. Davis was quite composed compared to his father. After being in this body for months, he had become used to it and brought his nerves and unchecked emotions under his control. At least he felt that he managed to keep it under his control. Logan nodded his head, but he still couldn't get his nervousness out of his head. A scream of agony and heavy breathing could be heard suddenly, followed by a cacophony of a crying baby. "Claire!" Logan hurriedly went inside the Empress's room. Davis also followed him inside. There were also other people beside them, but no one dared to follow after them. Inside the room, Claire was holding a newborn baby while beaming resplendently. She looked like an angel, and her smile lit the whole room with brightness. Logan remained stunned at the scene while Davis had his attention on the newcomer. Logan went beside her and shifted his attention to the baby. "It's a girl," Claire said with a smile on her face. Claire knew that she would get a girl baby, but she kept it a secret from everyone. She looked at Davis and said, "Davis, you're a big brother now. Me, thy wise sister?" Davis was dumbfounded at the prospect of his sister's birth, even though he knew this would happen eventually because of the general birth rate. This world wasn't like the modern world, and people rarely stop with a single baby, mostly because the chances that an heir would die is exceptionally high due to various reasons, mostly stemming from violent conflict. Logan took hold of the baby from Claire. He stared at her small, expressionless yet cute face with a gaze full of love. "Claire, she looks just like you. An angel." "Didn't we decide if the baby were a girl, I'd get to name her?" Claire asked as she giggled. "Yes, even though I wanted T.O." Logan had a face full of dissatisfaction as he muttered, "Damn." "Our little princess will be named Clara Lorette." Clara Lorette, a good name. Logan became a little happy with this name as it sounded similar to Claire, while Davis kept mumbling the name in his mind. A year passed. Davis started to learn about cultivation during this time. He was waiting for another year to pass so that he could start cultivating. Children in this world seem to start cultivating when they were 5 years old, but it differs depending on the child's physique. Some children start cultivating at 5, and some at 8 or even 10. "Davis!" Claire called out to him. "Mother." Davis was in the castle library reading books about cultivation. "Davis, I don't have to say it myself, but you, a capable genius, should know that no one has no way to cultivate soul-forging cultivation before they reach the revolving core stage. At least to my knowledge, I have never heard of such characters." "Yes, you mentioned it to me before, Mother." Davis instantly responded. Claire nodded her head and then revealed an ecstatic smile. "You are quite lucky, because we are the only empire in this continent who specializes in soul-forging cultivation." "Really?" Davis asked in excitement. "Other sects, clans, various families also have soul-forging cultivation manuals, but they don't compare to ours." "That's great." Davis had an elated expression on his face. "Then that means that I can advance in soul-forging cultivation faster and earlier than anyone else my age in this world." "Don't celebrate too soon." Claire looked as if she was going to pour cold water over his face. "Out of the 3 cultivation systems, soul-forging cultivation is the hardest to cultivate. This fact does not even need to be debated. You have achieved nascent soul stage before reaching revolving core stage. The soul-forging cultivation manuals in our continent can only be cultivated after reaching revolving core stage. At that stage, you can sense the changes in the heaven and earth required for soul-forging cultivation. If you can't cultivate your soul after a year with our soul-forging cultivation manual, then you will have to reach revolving core stage before training in it again, which makes your cultivation speed the same as any royal family children." Claire decided to put down his ego first, hence she explained, "What the fuck?" Davis looked speechless. There goes my genius chronicle down the drain. His nascent soul stage cultivation turned out to be useless unless he could cultivate and reach the revolving core stage to make his senses stronger. "I'm sorry, Davis, but I have no way to teach you soul-forging cultivation since our starting point differs. I could offer you help if you were at the revolving core stage. However, you will have to rely on your comprehension to learn how to cultivate your soul without reaching revolving core stage," Claire said with a helpless expression on her face. "I understand, Mother." Davis understood that almost all people couldn't sense the soul without any cultivation, but that wouldn't stop him from advancing forwards. He was sure that he would just take a few extra steps and stumble at certain points before officially beginning to cultivate his soul. "Mother, I want a nascent soul stage soul forging cultivation manual of our family now. Davis had an idea of where he should start, but he needed permission as always. Davis, you aren't allowed to cultivate until you're 5 years old, Claire warned with a stern expression on her face. I know, Mother. I just want to learn the manual to find a way to cultivate without reaching the revolving core stage, and I promise that I won't cultivate until I'm 5 years old. Claire looked pensive. She heaved a sigh and nodded her head. Sigh, I'll talk to your father about it. Then I'll come to play with Clara afterward, Davis excitedly uttered. Of course, however, Clara fancies you more than me. What kind of tricks did you play on her? Claire asked with an expression full of fake anger. Secret. Davis smirked and ran away. 6 months passed. After gaining permission from his father, he learned and inferred many nascent soul stage soul forging cultivation manuals. Davis worked hard to find a way to cultivate the soul. Logan personally started to teach him about all 3 types of cultivation, especially the basics of soul forging cultivation. After 6 months, Davis firmly grasped how to cultivate his soul normally when one reaches revolving core stage, but he couldn't fathom on how to cultivate without entering it. In fact, it was a miracle that he achieved the nascent soul stage without cultivating in a specific soul forging cultivation manual. Since Davis couldn't find a way to cultivate, he tried asking various personalities in a roundabout way. Oh, good day, Crown Prince, the librarian greeted Davis. Good day, Mr. Oxford, Davis greeted. Mr. Oxford was the librarian of the royal castle. He was 181 centimeters tall, with a suave and gentlemanly face. But he looked quite old when perceived in a mortal standard, around 50 years of age. His real age was unknown to Davis, but he knew that his question might be answered if he asked. Our prince is so studious. Our empire will surely be stable and powerful in the years to come, Oxford complimented with a sincere smile on his face. Thank you, Mr. Oxford. Davis reciprocated the smile with an innocent expression. Can I ask you a question? The prince has a question for me. I will try to answer my best. Which stage are you in the essence gathering cultivation system? Davis asked, with a curious expression on his face. I'm in the revolving core stage. However, it doesn't compare to your talented imperial father, who had recently reached the law seed stage just before the rebellion ended. Really? Father has achieved law seed stage? Davis became astonished. Davis finished reading about the basics of cultivation, so he knew the order of cultivation stages up to the 5th stage for all 3 cultivation systems. Yes, Mr. Oxford replied, with a proud smile on his face, perhaps proud of the Laura Empire's young emperor. The law seed stage is the 5th stage in the essence gathering cultivation system. It is difficult to attain it without resources and comprehension. Only the top powers of the continent have a powerhouse of the law seed stage. Logan's royal father, the previous emperor, was originally a law seed stage expert, but he died, triggering the start of the rebellion. Then what about my father's soul forging cultivation? Oh, aren't you in a hurry to learn about your father? Oxford teased but continued, your father is at the peak level of the young soul stage, the 3rd stage of soul forging cultivation. Meanwhile, I am only at the peak level of the nascent soul stage. Oxford sighed. Only the 3rd stage? And Mr. Oxford only reached the peak of the 1st stage in soul forging cultivation. Davis was shocked at their slow speed in soul cultivation. The young soul stage is the 3rd stage of soul forging cultivation. Oh, it isn't easy to cultivate the soul, my prince. Your Highness needs plenty of resources that tempers and refines your soul. Other than that, you need to perceive heaven and earth energy and resonate to comprehend the relevant mysteries required to enter the next level and stage. Without them, you can only slowly progress at a snail's pace. Training in the soul? Oxford looked as if he lamented that he couldn't cultivate his soul at a steady pace. It is very difficult. I understand, then I'll see you around. Davis kept nodding his head and took his leave. Davis walked absent-mindedly, thinking of a solution to the problem that he currently faced. No matter how he thought, he couldn't think of a solution with his current knowledge. Forget it, I'll eventually find a way to temper my soul. Davis gave up temporarily and went to play with his mother and sister. Clara was now able to form 3 to 4 words of sentences. He took his time playing, keeping his little sister entertained and making her cry accidentally, which makes Claire slap his butt out of this world. In this elevated life that didn't seem like how an imperial person would live, he lived rather carefreely without any burdens in his life other than learning imperial ethics and other subjects from the tutors. Other than not being allowed out of the royal castle, he was rather an unobstructed free soul who could go anywhere and disturb any person he wanted as long as it wasn't the emperor and the empress. Of course, they rarely rejected his presence unless they had some work. 8 months later, Davis reached his 5th birthday and officially earned the freedom to cultivate. He learned more about all 3 cultivation systems and got the cultivation manuals of all 3 of them 6 months ago. The 3 cultivation manuals he procured from the Royal Library were all sky-grade manuals. Sky-grade manuals were reserved only for the royal family members and those who produced top achievements beneficial to the Lauret Empire. Sky-grade cultivation techniques aren't easily available on this continent. They weren't just rare, but all available sky-grade manuals are already in the hands of the Grand Sea continent's top powers. No mid-level auctions even dared to sell one in their place, and at most, only the higher-tier powers will dare to sell them. The cultivation manuals he chose with the help of his father and mother were named Tyrant Body Secrets, Extinction Lightning Judgment, and Sacred Luminance Mist. Tyrant Body Secrets is a mid-level sky-grade manual, a body-tempering cultivation manual. It has 5 layers in it, with each of its layers corresponding to the stages in the cultivation system. The first layer is comprehended upon entering the first stage, the second layer is comprehended upon entering the second stage, and so on and so forth. Extinction Lightning Judgment is also a mid-level sky-grade manual. It is an essence-gathering cultivation manual. It also has 5 layers. Sacred Luminance Mist is a mid-level sky-grade manual. It is a soul-tempering cultivation technique, and it also has 5 layers in it. No top power in this continent has a sky-grade soul cultivation technique, at least publicly, and only the Lauret Empire holds a monopoly over it. However, there were still some powers that secretly held sky-grade soul forging cultivation manuals, but failed to cultivate a worthy heir. Lauret Empire has 3 sky-grade soul forging cultivation techniques, 2 low-level and 1 mid-level sky-grade manuals. After getting all the cultivation manuals required for him to make progress in his cultivation, his father tutored him about all 3 cultivation manolas, further increasing his knowledge up to the second stage of all 3 cultivation systems. Father, I still haven't gotten an idea on how to cultivate the soul. However, Davis was still depressed. He had rather managed to comprehend the basics of even the second stage in soul forging cultivation, but still failed to see how he could cultivate his soul. Don't sweat it. You are still a 5-year-old child. You have plenty of opportunities to try some ideas in the future. But, no buts. You can concentrate on the other 2 cultivation systems for now. Logan noticed something and started to leave with rather grand strides. "Hey, Father, where are you going?" Davis became bewildered as their discussion was not over yet. "It's time for me to break through," Logan excitedly smirked. Gwa! The goblin was sent flying a few meters away from William's location. The blood on its chest gushed forth and stained the ground in a greenish hue. 2 more shrieks filled with pain followed suit. The 2 goblins who had been bashing the Angorian goat were also sent flying a few meters away from the fallen beast. All 3 goblins lost consciousness, which made the surroundings very quiet. William snapped out of his daze and hurriedly crawled towards his Mama Ella. He didn't even glance at the floating wooden staff in the air that saved his and his mama's life. Ah! Hey, yeah. Mama, my mama. William hugged Ella's bloody head and cried. Me, Ella bleated. Blood was spilling at the side of her face and her eyes. Sensing that William was beside her, she licked the baby's cheeks before lowering her head to the ground. The Angorian goat had received severe injuries and was on the verge of dying. William kept on crying while holding onto Ella's bloody head. He didn't care that his clothes were stained with blood. The goat's coat had blood all over, and he could feel that her life was slowly ebbing away. Ooh-ah! Mama, don't leave me. Ooh-ah! As William cried, he felt something softly tapping his cheeks. As he turned his head, he saw the wooden staff floating by his side. Go away, ooh-ah! William swatted the wooden staff. Due to the event that just transpired and the strong smell of blood that permeated the air, the baby William was not able to think properly. This was the first time he experienced such a brutal event in his 2 lives, and it made his brain lose reason. As his hand touched the handle of the wooden staff, a small ringing sound resounded inside his head. The sound brought with it a calming effect, which allowed him to regain some clarity of mind. Although he was still somewhat deranged from fear and sorrow, he was able to read the row of words that appeared in front of him. Would you like to acquire the shepherd job class? Yes, no. The baby looked blankly at the glowing words in front of him. It took a few seconds before the words registered inside William's head. Aya, I choose yes. Congratulations, host has acquired the shepherd job class. Host has learned skill, way of the shepherd. Host has learned skill, bestow. Host has learned skill, first aid. William's attention locked on the newly acquired skill, first aid. He didn't waste any time and immediately read the skill's information. First aid, 5 mana points, heals 20 hit points, only work for creatures that belong to the herd. This skill cannot be upgraded. This is it. William knew that this skill was the thing he needed. He then glanced at his Mama Ella and was surprised to see the goat's status window. Name, Ella. Race, Angorian goat. Hit points, 5, 100. Mana, 20, 20. Strength, 2. Agility, 3. Vitality, 4. Intelligence, 2. Dexterity, 2. Skills, Horn Attack, Stomp. Titles, none. Available stat points, 0. Available skill points, 0. Current EXP, 0, 100. Seeing that his Mama Ella was indeed in a near-death condition, William touched the Angorian goat's head and said the skill out loud. Time was of the essence, and he couldn't afford to take things lightly. Aya, first aid. Aya, first aid. Aya, first aid. Aya, first aid. William repeatedly cast the skill until he felt his body grew heavy. He was also feeling a slight headache due to mana depletion. The goat's blood-stained coat was restored to its silky and fluffy appearance. Her broken legs snapped back in place, and Ella's bloody face returned to normal. The goat immediately stood up and licked William's face. The wet and warm tongue that he had grown accustomed to brought joy to the baby who had almost fallen into despair a few minutes ago. Aya, Mama, me! William hugged the goat's neck while the latter closed her eyes in comfort. The two stayed like this for a full minute, before the peace was broken by the 2 goblins who had regained consciousness. Me? Ella stood in front of William. The Angorian goat pawed the ground as if preparing to attack the moment the goblins came within her strike range. William grimaced because he forgot that the battle was still far from over. He quickly looked at his status to check if any of the skills he had learned could turn the tide in their favor. Way of the Shepherd. Passive skill. Increase the stats of all creatures in the herd by 20%. This is good, but not good enough, William thought as he looked at the other skill he had learned. Bestow. 10 mana points. Bestows 10 to all stat points. Only work for creatures that belong to the herd. This skill cannot be upgraded. Skill duration 2 hours. William looked at his status and found out that he no longer had any mana points. After he acquired the Shepherd job class, his stats had improved greatly compared to last time. The lack of mana, though, made him feel uneasy. I have 12 available stat points, William thought. I'll put them all in intelligence and act as Mama Ella's support. Name: William Von Ainsworth. Race: half-elf. Hit points: 20/20. Mana: 260/280. Job class: Shepherd. Subclass: none. Strength: 0. Agility: 0/1. Vitality: 1/1. Intelligence: 14. Dexterity: 0. Skills: Way of the Shepherd passive. Bestow, first aid, titles: none. Available stat points: 0. Available skill points: 0. Current EXP: 184, 1,366. Time to fight back. William placed his hand on the Angorian goat's coat and used his skill. Aya, bestow. Ella's body glowed and grew larger. Normally, her height was only a meter tall. However, after receiving William's bestowment, she became a meter and a half tall, and the horns on her head glowed bloody red. Although it still looked like a docile and harmless goat, its physical prowess had grown exponentially. Me! Ella bleated and charged towards the two goblins. Aside from gaining additional strength, it also became more intelligent. It knew that in order to protect William, it must take the initiative and deal with the two goblins as soon as possible. The goblins bellowed and charged at the goat with their wooden clubs held high. They were not afraid of human livestock. Since they had already defeated it once, they could easily defeat it again. When the two sides were only a few meters apart, Ella stomped hard on the ground and increased her speed. She caught the two goblins by surprise, which led to one of them to their immediate demise. Ella's horn glowed as it pierced the goblin's chest. This time, the horns penetrated the goblin's skin and tore towards the heart like a hot knife through butter. The goblin was only able to voice out a guttural death cry before it fell dead on the ground. Gained XP points: 60. After killing the first goblin, the Angorian goat pressed both of its front hooves firmly on the ground as it used its hind legs to deliver a powerful kick aimed towards the second goblin's head. A cracking sound echoed in the cave as Ella's hooves shattered the goblin's skull. The second goblin shrieked in pain before falling down. The Angorian goat then raised its hooves and stomped on the goblin's face with bloodshot eyes. Gained EXP points: 60. This was the goblin who had struck her body repeatedly, and Ella was hell-bent to smash its face to a pulp. After two hate-filled stomps, the goblin's face caved in, almost turning into meat paste. Ella grunted before turning her attention to the last goblin that had attempted to hit William with a wooden club. Although she hated the goblin who had beaten her up until she was near death, her hate for the goblin who tried to kill William had reached the extreme. The Angorian goat trotted towards the goblin. Ella knew that it was only playing dead, so that it would be left alone. Unfortunately, it had touched her reverse scale. William and Ella had no intention of keeping the bastard alive. As if sensing that death was at hand, the goblin sprang to its feet and ran away in fear. It didn't care about the blood that was gushing out of its chest. The goblin knew that staying would only lead to its death. William watched the goblin while his hand moved to the space in front of him. After killing the two goblins, the Angorian goat had increased its job level. Since Ella was registered as part of William's herd, he had the ability to distribute her stat and skill points. One of the skills that had been unlocked after Ella gained a level was an attack skill called Quick Attack. It allowed the creature to increase its speed exponentially to deliver a blow to its enemy. William didn't hesitate and chose the skill. He didn't want to let the goblin escape because it might call for reinforcements. Aya, Mama, use Quick Attack. The Angorian goat stomped on the ground and charged towards the fleeing goblin like an arrow in flight. A miserable shriek echoed inside the cave as Ella's bloody horns pierced through its back, impaling its heart. Gained EXP points: 60. After making sure that the goblin was indeed dead, Ella returned to William's side and licked his cheeks. Not long after, the goblins turned into particles of light and disappeared. William was very happy that he was able to survive such a dangerous ordeal. He hugged his Mama Ella's neck as the adrenaline rush started to disappear from his system. Aya, let's go back. Mama. Me. William touched the ring that was hanging on his neck. After gaining his job class, the appraisal skill was also unlocked. Because of this, he was able to learn the ring's special functions. With a brilliant flash of light, the baby and the goat disappeared from that dark and damp cave and returned to Mordred's and Anna's bedroom. After their near-death adventure, the baby and the goat immediately fell asleep. William only woke up when Anna bathed him while he was asleep. "What's wrong, little baby?" Anna pinched the baby's disgruntled chubby cheeks. "Did I interrupt your sleep?" "Aya." "Yes, aw, what a cute little boy you are," Anna cooed as she scrubbed William's body with a soap. "Don't worry, you can go back to sleep after I bathe you." Anna playfully tickled the baby's armpits. To her surprise, the baby actually giggled, which made her continue her teasing. Ella woke up due to William's giggling. However, seeing that Anna was taking care of him, the goat closed her eyes to sleep. Although William had healed her injuries, she was still exhausted after that skirmish with the goblins. Your favorite stories on NO via Bin.com. After William finished bathing, Anna wrapped him in a clean cloth. She then placed him beside Ella so that he could drink her milk. The baby had long gotten used to his routine and immediately helped himself to his mama Ella's milk. Daily quest, drink milk has been completed. Rewards, 6 EXP points. Current EXP, 365, 1,366. Shepherd LVL 1. Job EXP, 86, 200. My experience points increased by 1 point? William thought as he looked at the experience points he gained after his daily quest. This might be the effect of Gavin's blessing. If I remember correctly, he said that after gaining a job class, I will get a 20% increase in experience points. The little baby was quite happy with the gains he received from his first encounter with the goblins. However, he was still a bit scared at the thought of fighting goblins to gain more experience points. He came from a peaceful world. Although he had read many fantasy novels, experiencing it firsthand was different from reading a story. The ring that was hanging on his necklace had the ability to bring them to a dungeon. According to his appraisal, it was the Ring of Conquest. The description of the artifact stated that it allowed the user to go to a dungeon that had been recorded inside the ring. The name of the dungeon where they encountered the goblins was known as the Goblin Crypt. It had 20 floors and was considered as a grade D dungeon. Just as the name suggests, the dungeon's inhabitants were mainly goblins. William shuddered when he remembered the gruesome creatures that had almost sent him back into the cycle of reincarnation. Let's see my skills first. Maybe I got something useful. William decided not to worry about the goblins for the time being. I gained 1 level in my job class. William was quite happy with this development and immediately opened the skill tree on his Shepherd job class. There were 4 skills that were available. The first one was called Staff Mastery. Staff Mastery, passive. Increases damage of any staff-related weapons by 10%. This skill is actually not bad, William mused as he looked at the 3 available job points in his status screen. Let's read the other skills first, before I make the final decision. Wolf in sheep's clothing, passive, increases all stats of the herd by 1. This is a very good skill. William looked at the skill description with sparkling eyes. This would definitely help his mama Ella increase her battle prowess. Magnum Burst. 5 mana points. Deals AoE damage up to 3 square meters around the caster. Damage dealt is equivalent to Strength X2. Knockback effect. Parry. Passive. Increased chances of parrying attack by 5%. Requirement. Only works for staff and pole type weapons. 1 active and 3 passive skills, William thought. Getting the Magnum Burst is ideal because it gives me an offensive skill. As for the others, they are more of a support type skill. After careful consideration, William decided to pick Magnum Burst and Wolf in sheep's clothing from the list. He placed 1 skill point on the offensive skill and 2 skill points in the supportive skill. William knew that if he would challenge the dungeon again, he would be relying on his Mama Ella's help most of the time. Strengthening the support skill to help Mama Ella would ensure his safety. As for the offensive skill, it would be his last resort when things got out of hand. I need to add points to my strength when I level up. Now time to check Mama Ella's status window. Race, Angorian Goat. Hit points, 100, 100. Mana, 20, 20. Strength, 2. Agility, 3. Vitality, 4. Intelligence, 2. Dexterity, 2. Available stat points, 2. Available skill points, 2. Current EXP 80, 200. William noticed that his Mama Ella's current EXP was the same as his. Without pondering for long, the baby immediately placed 2 stat points on Ella's agility. He deemed that the faster his Mama Ella moved, the greater her chance for dodging the enemy's attack. He didn't want to see her dying in front of him. William would definitely do everything in his power to make sure that his Mama Ella would grow strong. After placing the stat points, he immediately checked the goat's skill tree to see if there were any decent skills available. William didn't know how beasts go stronger in this world. He didn't even know if they could evolve like the ones he saw on TV when he was still back on Earth. However, when he opened Ella's skill tree, he found out that there were 2 paths that he could choose from. The first path was the strength path. If William were to choose this path, Ella would become a creature that would heavily rely on physical strength. The other was called the spirit path. This allowed creatures to form a magic core inside their body. The magic core's function was to help the creature harness the magic power in its environment. Based on William's experience, creating a hybrid would not necessarily make Ella stronger. It might even greatly weaken her in the long run. Let's go with the strength path for now, William decided. Let's just use the might over magic strategy in the early game. We can choose the spirit path when we reach the end game. Steel armament, quick attack, and horn assault, William mused while looking at the 3 options. Steel armament, 5 mana points. Make the creature's horn and hooves as hard as steel. This skill cannot be upgraded. Quick attack, 5 mana points. Charges at the enemy with incredible speed. The speed of this attack will depend on the agility stat X3. Horn assault, 5 mana points. Deals a powerful blow to the enemy. May cause the target to flinch. Damage is based on the strength stat X2. William picked the steel armament without a second thought. The horn and hooves were his Mama Ella's main weapons. If it were strengthened, then it would definitely improve her fighting prowess. Let's put the other point on quick attack for now. I'll get horn assault later, after Mama Ella increases her level. With this, I am confident that we will be able to handle a one-on-one battle with a goblin. William had seen how Ella handled the 3 injured goblins after he cast the bestow skill on her. Although he wasn't 100% sure, he was confident that Ella wouldn't lose to a goblin if she fought it one-on-one. Even after he made all the necessary preparations, William was still uncertain if he should go back inside the dungeon. At the end of the day, he was still a 1-year-old baby with the mental age of an 18-year-old boy. For William, he could visit the dungeon when he was a bit older and ensure that both he and Ella wouldn't be in any danger. However, the temptation of becoming stronger at such a young age was too hard to resist. I guess I'll discuss this with Mama Ella first, William sighed. If she thinks that it is too dangerous, then I'll wait till I grow a few years older before we challenge the dungeon again. As if waiting for that exact moment, the sleeping goat finally woke up and licked William's face. Aya. Good morning, Mama. Me? Aya. Mama, there's something important that I would like to talk about. Me? Aya. It's about this. While the baby and the goat were having a heart-to-heart talk, Mordred had already left the house to handle the things within their estate. Anna, on the other hand, was cooking their lunch, while the maids did the other chores inside the house. Home sweet home, a booming voice sounded from outside the house. Master, you are finally back, a maid bowed as he greeted the man who swaggered into the house with a big smile on his face. The man had gray hair and above-average looks that would make any teenage girl on earth call him sugar daddy. His flawless smile made the maid blush as he nodded to her with a smile. I heard that my grandson is here, the old man said. Where is he? Master, if you are talking about young Lord Matthew, he is currently in the study with his teacher. Should I call for him? I'm not talking about Matthew. I'm talking about my other grandson. The maid nodded in understanding. Little William is currently inside Lady Anna's and Sir Mordred's bedroom. All right, return to your duties. The man waved his hand and headed straight to the 2nd floor where the resting quarters were located. Aya? What do you think, Mama? Me. While William was waiting for his Mama Ella's reply, an unknown man burst into the bedroom. Aha, there you are, you little critter. The man laughed as he grabbed William off the carpet and raised him high up in the air. You are definitely my grandson. That red hair and those green eyes of yours remind me of your father and mother. William smacked the unknown man on the face with his little chubby fist. but the latter only laughed. Ha ha ha! You are indeed a true Ainsworth, so small and yet so brave. The man nodded in appreciation. Listen to me, little brat. I am your grandpa. Grandpa. Say grandpa. Aya, Aya. Yeah, no, take this. A sprinkle of water splashed on the man's face. William's giggle resounded inside the bedroom as his grandpa looked at him with a complicated expression. After a few seconds, the man roared and joined the baby in his laughter. This was the scene that Anna saw when she returned to the bedroom. Their maid had informed her that her father-in-law had returned from his trip. She was mildly surprised when the old man went to look for William first, instead of looking for her husband, Mordred. Anna covered her lips and chuckled at the funny scene in front of her. Her piss-stained father-in-law was laughing with the giggling baby in his hands. "Father, you finally returned," Anna greeted after recovering her composure. "Oh, Anna, I'm back," James, Mordred's and Morgan's father, replied with a smile. "This brat sure is feisty." "William is normally a well-behaved child," Anna grinned. "This is the first time I'm seeing his mischievous side." "Well, boys tend to be mischievous," James agreed. "Also, Ella, stop poking me with your horns." "Hey, I said stop." Ella was stomping her foot on the floor while poking James with her horns. She was very upset about how James was treating her baby. If not for the fact that the one who raised her was this man, she would have already impaled him with her horns using her full strength. "Ella has been taking care of William ever since he arrived," Anna explained. "I think she treats him as her own child. Father, please return William to Ella, or else she might really have a go with you." "Me? Oh, you. I just left for a year and you've already forgotten how I raised you. What an ungrateful goat you are." James snorted, but a smile hung on his lips. "Fine, I'll take a bath first." "You look after this brat for me." James handed William to Anna and left the room while humming a tune. Clearly, he was in a good mood. "Bad baby," Anna lightly pinched William's chubby cheeks. "That is your grandpa. Don't pee on him, okay?" "Yeah, I'll think about it." Although this was the first time that William had met his grandpa, James, he found the old man to his liking. Of course, James didn't look old. In fact, he only looked like a middle-aged man that was still in his prime. William was looking forward to knowing more about his family in this life and prayed that he would be able to get along with all of them. "So, what do you think, William?" James asked. "The first thing I did after seeing you was to write a letter to my old pal and ask him to make his granddaughter your fiancée." "Aya? Fiancée?" The old man grinned as he rubbed William's chubby cheeks. "She's a year older than you," James explained. "Although I haven't seen her, the old bastard always bragged about his cute granddaughter. Since that is the case, making her your fiancée is definitely a good thing. Ah, she's also the daughter of a duke. It's a good opportunity for our family to climb the ranks of nobility." "I didn't know my grandpa was a gold digger." The baby's expression clouded over. The old man noticed the baby's disgruntled expression and decided to coax it. "What's wrong with having a beautiful girl as your fiancée? What? You're not satisfied? Don't worry, when you grow up, I'll make sure that you eat the cooked rice as soon as possible." They can't break off the engagement once a little William is inside her tummy. Aya. Bastard. William wanted to slap his grandpa for even thinking of committing a crime. Although he was not reluctant to the idea of having a fiancée. Arranged marriages didn't usually end well. Most of the time, it was just a tool for political gains to the nobles. James wandered around the estate carrying William. Ella walked alongside the old bastard and kept a watchful eye on the little baby. An hour later, James climbed a hill overlooking the town of Launt. "William, our family had lived here for generations," James said. "The life here is simple and crude, but it is very peaceful. Far away from the despicable games of the nobility, yet not important enough for the king's watchful eyes." This was the first time that William had seen his grandpa act this seriously. For a brief moment, he had forgotten that the old fool wanted him to tumble on the bed with his fiancée and give him a great-grandchild. "Our bloodline is very scant. Aside from me, my two sons, Matthew and you, there are no more Ainsworth in this land. We are the last of a dying breed. Discover new chapters on Imvel Bin. Calm." We don't have any living relatives?" William frowned. "How come?" James sighed as he looked at the distance. William could see sadness and unwillingness in his grandpa's expression. Although he wanted to know why their bloodline only had a few family members, he knew that now was not the right time. A few hours passed and the family had a dinner celebration to commemorate James's safe return from his trip. Matthew, the eldest son of his Uncle Mordred and Aunt Anna, sat beside James. William, on the other hand, was lying beside Ella and drinking her milk. His eyes were locked on the family dinner in front of him. He had never experienced this when he was still on Earth because he was an orphan. However, right now, he was wrapped in a sense of belonging. This was his family, and the soul inside the baby felt grateful for being given the opportunity to be born into this warm and caring family. Back then, if I had entered the silver portal, would I have been born into a family that is better than this, William thought. During his 1-year stay at the Ainsworth residence, he found out that his real mother was in the elven continent of Silvermoon. William had no recollection of what his mother looked like. All he knew was that they were forced to separate due to his mother's circumstance. "It's fine," William muttered inside his heart. "I'll look for my mother when I grow older. There's no need to rush." William had already known that his father had died. He didn't know how he died because no one in the family discussed it. Like the issue with his mother, he decided to find out more when he had reached a suitable age. After dinner, William was carried to the couple's bedroom. Ella stayed with him as usual. "Aya, Mama, do you want to return to the dungeon?" "Me, Aya. Are you not scared?" "Me, Aya. You want to become stronger?" The Angorian goat licked the baby's cheeks in reply. "Aya, Aya. Okay, but we will return immediately if things get dangerous, okay?" "Me." A few hours passed and the couple was finally in deep sleep. William held the ring that was hanging on his necklace with both hands and activated it. A second later, he found himself at the familiar cavern. Ella stood beside him and was on full alert. "Aya, bestow." Ella's body glowed and she grew half a meter taller. Her stats had been raised by 10. However, that didn't end there. William's passive skills, Way of the Shepherd and Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, boosted the stats with 3 additional stat points. While William didn't know if the current Ella was strong or not, he was sure that she could handle a one-on-one battle with the goblin. Name, Ella. Race, Angorian goat. Hit points 425, 425. Mana, 150, 150. Strength 2, Agility 613, Vitality 413, Intelligence 213. Aya, Mama, remember our agreement. We will only fight up to 2 goblins at a time, okay? Me. The Angorian goat laid down on the ground. William crawled on Ella's back in order to mount her. For some reason, the moment he sat on the goat's back, he felt that he wouldn't be dismounted even if Ella ran at full speed. It was as if the two of them had merged into a single entity. It was a strange feeling, but he didn't dislike it. "Aya, let's go, Mama." Me. The baby and goat pair snuck into the depths of the goblin crypt. William's heart beat wildly inside his chest. Although he was afraid, he was also looking forward to the possibility of becoming one of those protagonists that he had read about in the novels back on Earth. 15 minutes after they arrived in the dungeon, William and Ella found their first target. It was a lone goblin that was currently making a weird dance over a bonfire. For safety reasons, William dismounted Ella's back so the goat could fight without worrying about his safety. "Aya, Mama Ella, use steel armament." The goat took a fighting stance, and her horns and hooves glittered for a brief moment. The steel armament skill had a duration of an hour. It was a very useful skill that ensured that Ella's primary weapons would be as hard as steel. "Aya, use quick attack." Me. William watched as Ella's image blurred from where she stood. The next second, the goblin that was dancing on the bonfire leaked out a shriek as its body flew a few meters away due to the impact. Ella immediately used its hooves to stomp at the goblin's face repeatedly. William half covered his eyes at the brutal scene in front of him. He only stopped covering his eyes when he heard the ringing sound of a notification. Gained EXP points, 60. Current EXP, 424, 1,366. Job EXP Shepherd Level 1, 140, 200. Ella returned triumphantly by his side. The goat licked the baby's cheeks to assure him that she was all right. "Aya, good job, Mama." Me. After taking care of 2 more goblins, Ella gained another level. Since Ella and William's skill level is the same, both of them gained a level together. Current EXP 544, 1,366. Shepherd LVL 2, Job EXP 461. William went to Ella's stat page and unlocked the skill Horn Assault. Since there was an extra skill point, he decided to place it on Horn Assault as well. As for the 2 stat points, he decided to place all of them in Ella's agility. His battle plan for Ella was simple. He wanted her to be as nimble as possible for both attack and retreat. Since he had the bestow skill and the wolves in sheep's clothing, he didn't need to worry about adding more points to strength for the time being. William's job level had also increased, so he had 3 available stat points in hand. To be honest, he was really thankful for getting the 1 free extra skill point due to Gavin's blessing. He didn't think twice and pooled all of his skill points to wolf in sheep's clothing, giving a massive boost to Ella's stat points. Wolf in sheep's clothing 410, passive, increases all stats of the herd by 4. Strength 2, agility 817, vitality 417, intelligence 217, dexterity 217. With each extra stat and skill point in hand, William's confidence also grew. He had seen how Ella fought against the goblin and it took her 4 attacks to kill it. The body of the goblin turned into particles of light and disappeared from the dungeon. No drop loots? William stared at the space where the goblin died. Even the blood had also disappeared as if it was sucked up by the floor of the dungeon. The 2 continued hunting for goblins. Half an hour passed and they still hadn't encountered any other goblins aside from the 1 goblin they had fought earlier. I wish this dungeon had a map, William thought. It's hard to explore blindly. The moment William thought of a map, a floor layout appeared in front of him. 70% of the map was still shrouded in darkness. Only the places they had explored earlier were visible. Ha! The saying, "Ask and you shall receive," is true, William exclaimed as he looked at the map in front of him. Are there other features that I can use aside from the navigation system? Can I use cheat codes? Greed is good. William looked around, waiting expectantly for gold coins to appear in front of him. However, nothing happened. The baby curled his lip in disdain. William had the never surrender expression on his face as he shouted the cheat codes in the games he had played back on Earth. Debug Modio, up, down, left, right, A, B, select, start. Tulip, turtle. Off-road, rosebud, power overwhelming. Who's your daddy? William panted for breath as he finished shouting the cheat codes he was familiar with. A few minutes passed as an awkward silence enveloped the baby and the goat. So this game needs to be cleared first before I can play the NG version? Fine, challenge accepted, William thought as she gestured for his mama Ella to allow him to mount her back. With the map hovering in front of him, William navigated the cave with ease. He accidentally found a stairway that was headed downwards as he was clearing the undiscovered places in his map. Frankly, he was half tempted to proceed to the next floor, but William was a completionist by heart. After a brief struggle, he decided to fully map the first floor before he proceeded to the second floor of the goblin crypt. After an hour of walking around, they were finally able to clear 70% of the map. It was also at that moment when William saw 2 red dots in the space in front of them. Finally, William thought. Time for round 2. Mama, use quick attack. Me. Sorry mama, I got carried away. Read new chapters on Novi Ilbin. Calm. Ella laid down on the ground so that William could dismount. William crawled to the corner to hide. Ella immediately charged at the 2 goblins to engage them in battle. The baby was so focused on the scene in front of him that he didn't notice the red dot on the map that was slowly creeping up behind him. While William was watching the Angorian goat battle the 2 goblins, the wooden staff suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking the view of the battle. What's wrong with this staff? William thought. As if on cue, the staff tapped the map on his screen, which showed the red dot that was sneaking up behind him. William's body stiffened when he saw that the red dot was almost at his location. Out of panic, he grabbed the wooden staff with both hands. He then slowly turned his head to look behind him. Standing 4 meters away from him, a goblin holding 2 wooden clubs in its hands growled in anger. Mama! Just as the goblin was about to attack William, a white blur went past him and knocked the goblin flying in the opposite direction. Me? Ella stood in front of William with the intent to protect him. The goblin who was knocked away slowly stood up because Ella's attack wasn't strong enough to kill it. The other two goblins that the goat had engaged earlier were mostly unharmed and were also headed in their direction. Aya, Mama, let's retreat. Me. The Angorian goat unceremoniously bit the baby's clothes and ran away. While being carried to safety, William realized that he had been overconfident with his ability. He thought that with Ella's new gained abilities and his map, he would be invincible. I got too conceited, William thought. I forgot that this was a dungeon. Monsters can spawn anywhere at any time. Based on the games he had played in the past, random encounters like this were very common if you walked into a cave or in tall grasses. If not for the staff appearing to remind him that there was danger, William might have already been squashed like a pancake. When Ella finally lowered William to the ground, the baby was still deep in thought. Me. Aya. Sorry, Mama. Mia. Ia. I will be more careful in the future. Mia. Ia. I promise. Mia. Ella nagged at William for 5 minutes before she finally relented. With this, the baby and the goat were in a dilemma. If they don't hunt for goblins, they would not be able to gain experience points. If they don't get experience points, they wouldn't be able to level up. After the incident, Ella was very reluctant to leave William's side. The baby understood his mama's worry, so he didn't say anything else. What should I do? William pondered. If only there is a place where monsters can't attack me. Wait, is there a safe zone in this dungeon? William opened the map and checked the places that they had unmasked. Unfortunately, there was nothing that looked like a safe zone in the places that they had visited. Wait, there might be another way. William's eyes widened when he remembered something very important. Their current progress was similar to a game. In every game novel that he had read, there existed a mighty existence that helped protagonists make their life easier. What is that mighty existence? It's none other than the Aya system. William immediately closed his eyes. He had a feeling that all he needed to do was call out for it and it would appear. Within the darkness, something bright glittered in the distance. The baby immediately proceeded to that place and found the thing he was looking for. Hovering above 3 altars were the gifts that were given to him by the 3 gods before he left for the cycle of reincarnation. A chess piece, a CPU core, and a lollipop. Although William didn't know what the chess piece and the lollipop could do, he ignored them for now and went straight to touch the CPU core. The moment his hands touched the core, a dazzling light enveloped his sight. Ding, system has been activated. Preparing soul identification. Host has been identified. Now loading. Error. Host hasn't acquired the minimum requirement to open the system. System will shut down in 1. The light receded and the glow of the CPU core dimmed. William looked in dismay as he used the appraisal skill to check the requirement to activate Gavin's gift to him. CPU core. Activation requirement, job level 10. Job level 10? William tilted his head. I'm currently at job level 2. I need 8 more to open the system. The baby opened its eyes and sighed. He indeed had a system, but he was unable to open it for the time being. I need to activate the system no matter what. William thought long and hard before coming to a decision. Aya, Mama Ella, let's go back for now. Me. William activated the ring and returned to the living room. Although their adventure ended prematurely, William didn't think that he hadn't gained anything from his exploration. For one thing, he gained a level. Second, he was able to understand more about the item that Gavin had given him. What William didn't know was that the 3 items that were floating in his sea of consciousness were not actually simple items, but divinities. These divinities could also be called God's essence, and they contained power that could affect the laws of the world. Of course, these divinities had certain restrictions as well. When the sun rose, William waited for Mordred and Anna to leave the room before conducting his experiment. He sat on the floor and summoned the wooden staff. The staff hovered a meter away from him as if waiting for his orders. Aya, magnum burst! The staff tapped the floor and a blast of air pushed Ella a few meters away from William. The carpets in the chair near him were blown away as well. William immediately opened Ella's status page to see if she was hurt, but her HP bar was still full. This meant that the skill didn't hurt her. Of course, he also thought of the possibility that the skill doesn't affect his allies. I need to find a suitable target, William thought. Aya, Mama, carry me. Me? Aya, I want to go outside. me. The goat lay down and allowed William to mount it. Just like what happened in the dungeon, William felt that he and Ella had become one. It was a surreal feeling. He even thought that even if he swayed his body side to side, he wouldn't fall off from her back even if he wanted to. As the two left the room, they were discovered by William's grandpa, James. "Oh?" James looked. "Where are the two of you going?" "Aya." "Outside." "Me." "I don't really understand. But make sure to not stray too far from the house, okay?" "Aya." "Okay." "Me." James watched in amusement as the goat and the baby left the house through the front door. "That child reminds me of my childhood," James muttered. "Just a year old and already out seeking for an adventure." "Aya." Magnum burst. A shower of leaves fell down on William's head as he tried his skill on a tree. The bark of the tree had no visible damage, but the effect of the AoE had activated. Magnum burst. 5 mana points. Deals AoE damage up to 3 square meters around the caster. Damage is dependent on the caster's strength. Knockback effect. So, this skill currently deals no damage because I don't have any strength. William frowned. But it still has the knockback effect. William checked his stats inside. Strength 0. Agility 0-1. Vitality 1-1. Intelligence 14-1. Dexterity 0. Current EXP 544, 1366. Shepherd LVL 2. Job EXP 6461. I need XP before I gain another level to increase my stats, William mused. Killing 1 goblin gives me 60 points. In order to level up, I need to kill 14 goblins. Should I add my points to strength when I level up? After careful considerations, William decided that it was not a good idea. Even if he added his stats to strength, he would not be able to deal massive damage to the enemy. Adding the stat points to intelligence would be more ideal because he could act as support to his Mama Ella. Magnum Burst is a good skill because it allows me to repel anyone that dares to target me. It will also give enough time for Mama Ella to come to my rescue. Although it doesn't deal damage right now, the knockback will be able to keep me safe. "Yeah, Mama, use Horn Assault." "Me." Ella's horns doubled in size and glowed bloody red. The goblin was skewered and shrieked madly. Ella didn't stop after she impaled her target. Instead, she ran towards the wall of the dungeon with the intention of crushing the goblin to a pulp. Read new chapters on novl.bin.com. Gained EXP points 60. Current EXP is 604, 1366. Shepherd LVL 2. Job EXP 120, 461. Nice! William grinned when he saw the notification. Right now, he was multitasking. While checking the battle, he was also observing the map at the same time. His right hand was holding the wooden staff in preparation to protect himself if a random monster spawned beside him. He had already learned his lesson and he wouldn't allow any mistakes to happen this time. He and his Mama Ella only had 1 life. It was best to be careful and take things slowly. Gained EXP points 60. Gained EXP points 60. Gained EXP points 60. Gained EXP points 60. After killing 13 more goblins, William finally gained a level in his stats and job level. Current EXP 18, 2010. Shepherd LVL 3. Job EXP 439, 880. Although he was tempted to add the stats to strength, he knew that now was not the right time to do it. He placed the 3 stat points he gained to int and it made him feel a bit more confident. Strength 0, Agility 0-1, Vitality 1-1, Intelligence 17-1, Dexterity 0. After taking care of his stats, William placed all of his available skill points to wolves in sheep's clothing. He knew that this was the safest investment he could make because Ella was the one fighting for him. The stronger she became, the safer he would be. Wolf in sheep's clothing 7-10, passive, increases all stats of the herd by 7 points. Now, it's Mama Ella's turn. 20, Strength 2, Agility 10, Vitality 4, Intelligence 2, Dexterity 2, Quick Attack 2, 5 mana points. Charges at the enemy with incredible speed. The speed of this attack will depend on the agility stat x 3.5. Horn Assault 2-10. 5 mana points. Deals a powerful blow to the enemy. May cause the target to flinch. Damage is based on the strength stat X205. With this, the first floor has been cleared. William clapped his hands happily. Time to go to the second floor and see what kind of adventure is waiting for us. Ella licked the baby's cheeks. Clearly, she was in a good mood. She could feel herself getting stronger. For her, it was a good thing. Her only concern was William's safety. As if reading her thoughts, William reached out to hug her neck. Aya, don't worry, Mama. I'll keep myself safe. Me. Aya. Let's go to the second floor. Me. William sat on Ella's back with a smile on his face. The Angorian goat walked steadily as it descended, carrying her baby, to the second floor of the goblin crypt. 9 years passed swiftly, like the grains of sand inside an hourglass. For William, those 9 years were filled with close calls as he and Ella walked the thin line between life and death. Of course, he could choose not to use the Ring of Conquest and live a peaceful and stable lifestyle. However, he didn't choose that route. He didn't want to waste his youth doing nothing but eating and sleeping. His mentality in regards to his second life was largely due to the influence of the novels that he had read when he was still back on Earth. William knew that if he didn't grasp the opportunity to become stronger while he was young, he would regret it for the rest of his life. In a valley located near the outskirts of Lant, hundreds of Angorian goats and sheep were currently grazing in peace. Not far from them, a 10-year-old boy sat on top of a tree branch. He was keeping a lookout for any potential threats to the safety of his herd. The wind rustled his short red hair as he watched his herd with a smile. Among the hundreds of Angorian goats, his herd only consists of 50 individuals. The rest were managed by 5 other shepherds and apprentice shepherds like him who lived in the town of Lant. Will, a boy in his early teens, ran towards the tree where William was taking a rest. Your grandfather is looking for you. Gramps? William glanced at his friend Theo, who was also the son of the most senior shepherd in Lant. Do you know why he is looking for me? William asked. No, Theo answered. But he doesn't look good. He seems to be very angry. William frowned. His grandfather was a very happy-go-lucky person. Very few things could make him angry. Theo had no reason to lie to him, so something must have happened to the old man while he was away from the estate. All right, William nodded his head. Can you keep watch over my herd while I'm away? If I'm not back before my shift ends, bring them back to our family pen. Eh? But I was supposed to play with the others this afternoon. I'll give you a slice of apple pie. 2 slices. Deal, William grinned. He then shouted at the herd who was grazing at the pasture. Mama, let's go home. Gramps is calling for us. Me, an Angorian goat who was 1.5 meters tall, broke out from the herd and ran towards William. The boy jumped off the branch and landed nimbly on the back of his mama Ella. The two traveled back to their residence in haste. What William didn't know was that there was a storm brewing within the Ainsworth residence, and it was all because of him. As William and Ella neared their estate, they noticed a luxurious carriage in the distance. He had never seen a carriage like this in Lant, so he assumed that they were having guests from outside their border. Right beside the carriage was a 6-meter-tall creature. This beast had the head and wings of an eagle and the body of a lion. It was very easy for William to identify this creature that came from myths and legends. A griffin, William muttered as Ella stopped in front of the beast to give it a better look. The Angorian goat raised her head and stared at the griffin. The griffin stared back. William could see the disdain in its proud and sharp eyes. It was as if the two of them were just mere insects passing through and not worthy of its attention. Let's go, Mama, William said as he caressed Ella's neck. It's just an overgrown burb. Me. It's not a bird, Mama. It's a burb. Me? A burb is what you call a bird that is having an identity crisis. The goat looked at the griffin one more time before nodding her head. She agreed with William that this creature was not a bird, but a burb. Since it was a burb, she didn't have to bother with trying to figure out why it had legs instead of talons. Clearly, this bird was having an identity crisis. The goat looked at the griffin with pity before walking towards their house. Me. I agree, Mama. This burb is truly pitiful. The griffin was a very intelligent creature. Naturally, it understood William and Ella's conversation, and it made it very angry. If not for the fact that it was tied to the carriage, it would have already trampled the two insects who dared to look at it with pitiful eyes. With a belly filled with anger, the griffin gave a deafening shriek, But William and Ella didn't even bother to give it a second glance. They were more curious about who their guest was. Since they rode such an amazing carriage pulled by a griffin, their identity would surely be not ordinary. "Grandpa, I'm back," William shouted as he opened the door. "Me?" Ella also announced her arrival, which made those who were currently sitting at the living room look at them in surprise. There were 3 people who were seated at the couch, and 4 were standing behind them. The 3 were wearing elegant clothes, while the 4 men behind them were wearing light armors. James, Mordred, and Anna sat across from these guests. William noticed that his grandfather's expression was indeed not very good. He could feel the barely restrained anger that was threatening to explode at any moment. "William, please, take a seat," Anna said with a smile. These guests came from the Duchy of Griffith. Anna's tone was polite, but William couldn't feel any semblance of respect in her voice. It was as if his aunt didn't treat these people as guests, but pests who came into their territory. Mordred cleared his throat and introduced the guests one by one. "This lady is the Duchess of Griffith, Lady Agatha," Mordred said with a smile. "And this lovely young girl here is her daughter, Lady Rebecca." He then shifted his gaze at the beautiful woman who was wearing an elegant light blue robe. Her cold features and chilling gaze would make anyone lower their heads in submission. "This lady is one of the elders of the Misty Sect, Lady Eleanor." Mordred grinned. "They came from far away just to see you, William." "Oh." William raised an eyebrow and appraised the guests one by one. The Duchess of Griffith had long light brown hair and green eyes. She could be considered a beauty, but the obvious displeasure on her face made William think of an old witch who was out to give little kids poisoned apples. Her daughter, Rebecca, on the other hand, made William's eyes soften. Although he wasn't completely sure, he guessed that her age was almost the same as his. Her short, light brown hair that barely reached her shoulders looked as smooth as silk. She had the same light green eyes as her mother's, but compared to the old hag, her eyes were bright and clear. Her cute and adorable lips were poised in a smile that made her already beautiful face very charming. William sighed at the doll-like girl in front of him. He had no doubt in his mind that if he were a Lolacon, he would have already locked her up in his room and treated her like a pet. As for the cold beauty who was staring daggers at him, William didn't even spare her a second glance. Although she was beautiful, the boy could tell that she was the embodiment of bad news. "Good day to all of you," William greeted with a smile. "My name is William von Ainsworth, Will for short, and the most handsome 10-year-old boy in the Central Continent. I dare say that you won't find anyone more handsome than me. As for the other boys in the continent," William curled his lip in disdain, "all of them can just fight for second place." After William's shameless declaration, the room suddenly became silent. Even the scowling old hag and the cold beauty looked at William with dumbfounded faces. This made the smirk on William's face widen. Clearly, he was very satisfied with this result. The silence was suddenly broken by a boisterous laughter that came from James. "Ha ha ha! As expected of my grandson!" James clapped his hands. The anger that he had been bottling up completely evaporated into thin air as his eyes turned into crescents. Worthy of being an Ainsworth, William flipped his hair and flashed a dazzling smile. He also gave the little doll a "I know you like me" expression. Because he had just come from the pasture, William's clothes were dirty. His face was dusty and his red hair was a mess. Even so, his green eyes that were as clear as emeralds made the little doll, Rebecca, raise an eyebrow in acknowledgement. "This should be enough for a first impression," William mused. "If I'm not mistaken, this little loli should be my fiancé." As expected of Gramps, he really did a good job. William found Rebecca to his liking and gave the young girl 2 thumbs up in his heart. The boy knew that, in a few more years, this little doll would grow up to be an outstanding beauty. Marrying someone like her wouldn't be a bad idea, as far as William was concerned. However, before he could even imagine his rose-colored future, the old hag opened her mouth and broke William's daydream. "Since you are already here, let us get right down to business," Agatha said in a mocking tone. "We came here to break the marriage agreement between my daughter and this unworthy boy who is covered in filth." "How dare you?" James erupted in anger. "You dare call my grandson unworthy?" "Father, please calm down." Mordred held his father in a bear hug. He was afraid if the old man really went all out, the Duchess would have her neck ripped off from her body. The guards who were standing behind their employers drew their swords and stood between the 2 parties. "Sorry, Lord Ainsworth," Agatha replied with a light bow. Although I had offended your family, I will not allow my daughter to marry your grandson, even if it was decreed by my husband's father. Where is that bastard? James asked. Bring him here. I want him to explain the reason why he is backing out of our agreement. The old Duke had gone to explore the desert in the south, Agatha replied. I'm afraid that it would be impossible to get in touch with him at this point in time. James laughed in contempt. I see. So, you took the opportunity while he was away to break this engagement. In short, he is not aware of your actions, am I right, Lady Agatha? Read new chapters on Noville Bin. Calm. Yes, the old Duke is not aware of my actions, Agatha admitted. Her stance made it clear that she was not going to back down. She was hell-bent on breaking the marriage agreement while her husband's father was away from their duchy. Good, good, good. James glared at the woman in front of her. To think that a little baroness would act like this after marrying a duke. Truly disappointing. So, is your husband in agreement to this as well? My husband shares the same opinion. Agatha raised her chin. The current Duke of Griffith doesn't recognize this arranged marriage. If you want to talk to him, then feel free to come to the Dukedom of Griffith. We will be more than happy to give you our hospitality. Hospitality? James sneered. A SLT like you and that bastard better wash your necks. You want me to come to your duchy? Fine. I will bring the Red Plague along with me when I visit. I want to see just how the two of you are planning to give me your hospitality. Agatha and the cold beauty, Eleanor from the Misty sect, had a sudden change in their expression. They looked at the old man in shock because they knew that he was dead serious. What's wrong? James said in disdain. Scared? You think you and your husband have the authority to break this agreement? As for you, Eleanor of the Misty sect, it seems that you and those old hags in your ice mountain have a lot of free time. Do you also want me to give you a visit? I'm very curious. What kind of hospitality will you give this old man? Agatha's and Eleanor's expressions were very grim. Although the possibility of the Red Plague returning to their kingdom was low, they couldn't deny this possibility. Both of them couldn't afford to pay the consequence if the old man made his threat a reality. Gramps, calm down. William patted his grandfather's arm. You are being rude to our guests. You brat, I'm doing this for you. If there weren't other people around, James would have already grabbed the little prick and spanked his bum to oblivion. Don't worry, Gramps, I'll handle this, William said with a smile. Just calm down. I don't want you to get a heart attack. It's just not worth it. Aunt, can you bring Grandpa to his room? I'll take care of our guests for the time being. Anna eyed her nephew with appreciation and nodded her head. Father, let's go. I'm sure that William will be able to deal with these our guests. James snorted and left the living room in a huff. Mordred sighed and motioned for his nephew to sit by his side. Seeing that the dangerous situation had died down, the 4 guards sheathed their weapons and stood behind their employers. All right, so you came here to break the marriage agreement. William nodded his head. Can you tell me why? Agatha looked at the boy in front of her in surprise. The way he acted was not that of a 10-year-old. Although she didn't feel like she was talking to an adult, she still thought that the one who was taking the lead in the conversation was not a child. Allow me to answer your question, Eleanor replied. Rebecca is a genius that is only born once every 200 years. As her master, I can't allow my disciple to marry a nobody. Ah, I see. William nodded his head. Perfectly understandable. You agree? Eleanor frowned. You agree that you are not worthy of my disciple? You are mistaken. William shook his head. I understand your reason, but I don't agree with it. However, since you came here to break the marriage agreement due to this reason, you must surely have made sufficient preparations, right? Agatha was starting to feel that the filthy boy in front of her was not as simple as he seemed. His mannerisms and the way he acted made her feel that this marriage agreement wasn't a big deal to him. What do you mean, made sufficient preparations? Agatha asked. What I mean is, have you prepared your compensation? William smiled. Since you are planning to break the marriage agreement, you should have brought a suitable compensation to make us agree to your demand, right? Mordred, who was listening to his nephew, had a calm expression on his face. However, deep inside, he was very alarmed. William had never acted like this in front of them before, and for a moment, he was unsure if the boy sitting next to him was his real nephew or not. I see. Agatha nodded her head. You want compensation, right? Very well. How much gold do you want? Gold? I'm not interested in gold, William replied. Do you think we are poor? Yes, Agatha thought. You are poor, Eleanor mused. Very poor. Rebecca smiled. Actually, we are very poor. Mordred sighed in his heart, but didn't say anything. He needed to act as if gold wasn't a big deal to him in order to support his nephew in the negotiations. My goodness, where is our manners? William placed his hand over his forehead as if he had completely forgotten something. Aunt Helen, please serve our guests some tea. Here, use these special leaves I picked on my way back home. William shamelessly picked the leaves and grasses that were stuck on his clothes one by one. He didn't even spare the leaves that had fallen on his head while he slept in the valley. As you wish, young master. Helen, the maid of the family, took the leaves with a smile. She then proceeded to the kitchen in order to brew the special tea for their guests. Don't worry, tea will be served shortly. William gave his guests a bright smile. I want to show all of you our hospitality. Mordred averted his gaze and gave a light cough, although he was poor. He was not shameless enough to serve tea made from the wild grasses that the goats of Launt fed on in the valley. Agatha and Eleanor did their best to keep their disgust from appearing on their faces. They couldn't believe that William actually dared to serve them tea made from wild grass. This was a slap to their faces, and it made them seethe in anger. Rebecca, on the other hand, looked at William with amusement. She didn't really care about the marriage agreement and didn't think much of her fiancé. However, the more she looked at William, the more pleasing he became in her eyes. Here you go, young master, Helen said as she served the tea in front of William. Thank you, Aunt Helen, William replied. I promised Theo that I'd give him 2 slices of apple pie. Please, hand it to him when he comes later to return our sheep. Understood. Helen nodded her head and left the living room. William picked up the teacup and took a quick sip before glancing at their guests. Well then, let's get down to business. William smiled. So, what kind of compensation did you prepare in order to bribe our family to break this engagement? Like I said earlier, we don't need gold. We're not poor. Agatha glanced at Eleanor before taking the initiative to start the discussion. Then what do you want? Agatha asked. Treasures, artifacts, William replied. As long as it has value, then I'll take it. Eleanor took a small box from her storage ring and showed it to William. In this world, rich and influential people were able to afford these magical artifacts who were able to store items in a separate dimension. According to William's knowledge, the maximum capacity of the best storage ring in the continent was only 2 square meters. Although it made things easier to carry things around, the space was quite limited. Eleanor opened the box and showed its contents to William. This is called the Pill of Growth, Eleanor explained. This is a very expensive pill that is worth 2,000 gold coins. If you agree to break this marriage agreement, I will give this to you. You want me to break the marriage agreement for a pill that is only worth 2,000 gold coins? William asked in a mocking tone. He then glanced at Rebecca and grinned. In your master's eyes, you are only worth 2,000 gold coins. Rebecca frowned but didn't say anything. Seeing her reaction, Eleanor's face sank. Although the young genius had accepted her to be her master, the two of them hadn't started their apprenticeship. She was planning to take Rebecca to the Misty Sect to start her training, but postponed it when she discovered that she was engaged to a country bumpkin. As an elder of the prestigious sect, she wouldn't allow her disciple to have any kind of attachment to a nobody. Agatha and her husband shared her opinion. This was also why they took advantage of the old Duke's absence. Both of them wanted to break the engagement that was made when Rebecca was only 2 years old. Of course, this is not the only thing that I'm willing to give you, Eleanor said through gritted teeth. This is only one of the things that you will obtain if you agree to break the marriage agreement between the two families. Can I see that pill? William asked. Okay. Eleanor passed the box over so that William could take a closer look. The elder of the Misty Sect was confident that the boy was ignorant of such a treasure. What she didn't know was that William had the almighty appraisal skill at his beck and call, Pill of Growth. When consumed, this pill will permanently increase all stats by 1. William snorted and unceremoniously made a gesture for his Mama Ella to come closer. Mama, this is good stuff. William grinned. Me? Try it, Mama. William placed the pill inside Ella's mouth, which shocked Agatha, Eleanor, and the 4 guards behind them. The Angorian goat chewed the pill, and its eyes widened in surprise. "Is it good?" William asked. "Me. Just so-so?" Ella nodded her head in confirmation. Although the pill had raised all of her stats by 1, the taste was not satisfactory for her. "Why, you? What have you done?" Eleanor couldn't believe her eyes. The boy actually fed the pill of growth to a goat. What a waste of resources. The 4 guards glared at William. They felt their heart ache because a pill of growth was worth 5,000 sect credits. They had to work for 2 years in order to get enough points to exchange for it at the Misty sect. "What's wrong?" William asked back. "It's just a cheap pill of growth. Don't worry, since I already used it, you can deduct it from the list of compensation items that you are planning to give me." Eleanor's chest heaved up and down in fury. The pill of growth was supposed to be her gift to Rebecca. In order to make the bastard boy agree to annul the marriage agreement, she decided to compromise and give it to him instead. However, seeing him treat her treasure like it was just a piece of candy angered her. Seeing Eleanor's expression, Agatha decided to intervene and picked a treasure from her own storage ring. "Here, this is a magic staff," Agatha explained. "Although you don't have an ounce of magical power, you can pass it to other people who are more talented than you." William ignored the ridicule in Agatha's words and took the magic staff from her hand. Bronze Staff of Learning. A staff suitable for apprentice magicians. Increases intelligence by 3. William frowned and returned the staff to Agatha. "Sorry, I'm not interested in a cheap magic staff. Do you have something better?" "See, cheap. This staff is worth 1,000 gold coins." Agatha almost whacked the boy's head using the staff in her hands. She couldn't believe that a mere shepherd dares to call it cheap. "I'm not interested in low-quality items." William shrugged. "Oh, they said that you are a genius. Are you a magician?" "Yes," Rebecca replied. "Do you have a magic staff?" "I do." "Show it to Mun." Rebecca pondered for a bit before reluctantly summoning her magic staff. Unlike the Bronze Staff of Learning, the staff in Rebecca's hand had a dark blue color. You could even call it a spear, but instead of a sharp blade, a big purple crystal in the shape of a rose adorned its tip. William's eyes sparkled because he could tell that the staff was way better compared to the bronze staff that he had appraised earlier. "Can I touch it?" "Don't worry, I won't break it." William patted his chest. "I just want to take a closer look at it." "Very well, but you can only hold it for half a minute," Rebecca stated. "This staff is worth 20,000 gold coins." 20,000 gold coins? It's that expensive? William held the staff in his hands to have it appraised. However, before he could even use the appraisal skill, a series of text appeared in front of him. Ding! Would you like to acquire the Ice Mage job class? Yes, no. William froze when he read the notification. It took him a few seconds to regain his composure and immediately chose yes as his answer. Time's up, Rebecca announced as she snatched the magic staff from William's hands. Your half a minute has passed. William was still in a daze. He hadn't heard Rebecca's words because he was busy inspecting the new job class that he had acquired. Congratulations, host has acquired the Ice Mage job class. Ice Mage job class has been automatically added to the subclass category. Ice Mage, a magician that specializes in ice magic. Increase resistance against cold. Host has learned skill Ice Bullet. I got a new job class just by holding a staff? William's heart was thumping wildly inside his chest. He had often wondered how he could acquire a subclass. Never in his wildest dreams did he think that acquiring a new job class was this easy. William's shocked expression made Agatha and Eleanor look at him in contempt. The two older women thought that the boy had been shocked due to how expensive the magic staff was. How ignorant, Agatha thought. Country bumpkin, Eleanor mused. Mordred, who was seated by William's side, frowned. He could see William's hands trembling and wondered if he should step in to save his nephew. Do you guys have other expensive items? William stuttered. It's the first time I held something so amazing in my life. If you are able to show me at least 5 items of the same quality, I will agree to annul this arranged marriage. Only show you? Agatha asked. You're not going to take it? I won't take it, William answered while keeping his excitement at bay. I just want to hold it just like I did with that staff. If we do this, will you really agree to cancel the marriage agreement? Eleanor inquired. This was the reason for their visit. If she could make the boy write a letter to renounce the agreement, then the old Duke wouldn't be able to find anything amiss. Yes. However, it should be of the same quality or higher, William answered. I will not accept cheap items. Agatha and Eleanor exchanged a glance and nodded at the same time. They retrieved the most expensive items from their storage rings and piled them in front of William. The boy looked at all the treasures in front of him, and his eyes sparkled in excitement. Ding, would you like to acquire the fire mage job class? Ding, would you like to acquire the water mage job class? Ding, would you like to acquire the earth mage job class? Ding, would you like to acquire the wind mage job class? The items that Eleanor presented were all magic staffs of the different elements. Since she was a sorceress, all her treasures belonged to the magic type category. William's breathing became heavier with each item he held in his hands. His eyes also became bloodshot, which made Eleanor very happy. She thought that the boy had finally realized that he was a frog at the bottom of the well. A frog that is trying to eat a swan? Eleanor laughed inside her head. See the difference between our social standing. It's time to wake up from your daydream, you country bumpkin. After William finished inspecting the magical weapons that came from Eleanor, he shifted his attention to the weapons that came from Agatha's collection. Ding, would you like to acquire the swordsman job class? Ding, would you like to acquire the archer job class? Ding, would you like to acquire the spearman job class? Ding, would you like to acquire the monk job class? Ding, would you like to acquire the thief job class? William's body shuddered in ecstasy. His breathing had now become ragged, as if he was about to faint any time due to exhaustion. William, are you all right? Mordred asked. He was very worried about his nephew's current condition. I never felt better in my life, William replied hoarsely. He took a step back and almost collapsed on the couch. Fortunately, Mordred was paying close attention to him and was able to support his body on time. Are you satisfied? Agatha asked. Will you honor our agreement? Yes, William replied. He still hadn't recovered from the euphoria that he had felt earlier. I will agree to the cancellation of this marriage agreement. We need you to write a letter, and it must have your signature as well, Eleanor interjected. It's not that we don't trust you, but this thing must be properly recorded. Read latest chapters on novelbin.com. Understood, William nodded and asked for paper and ink. He then wrote a letter saying that he didn't agree to the arranged marriage that was made between his Gramps and Rebecca's grandfather. The reason he gave for the cancellation of the marriage agreement was due to Rebecca being not good enough for him. He stated that since he was the most handsome boy in the continent, it was only natural that he be paired up with a girl that had the beauty to topple nations. Also, he was not optimistic about Rebecca's growth in her chest area. William felt that the girl would only have a B cup when she reached adulthood. He even politely added that he could consider making Rebecca his concubine if his main wife agreed to accept her into his harem. When Agatha and Eleanor read William's letter, both of them almost spat out a mouthful of blood in anger. William had listed a series of complaints as to why Rebecca was not worthy to become his fiancée and not the other way around. Agatha even had the impulse to rip the little bastard to shreds in order to eat his flesh and drink his blood. She had never felt so angered in her life, and it almost drove her crazy. Since I have written the letter, then all of you should leave. William shooed the pests away. Don't tell me you plan to stay to have dinner with us? Well, I guess we can spare you some porridge, since the Ainsworth family has a big heart. I don't want any rumors flying around that we didn't treat our guests properly. Agatha dragged her daughter towards the front door because she was afraid that, if she stayed a second longer, she would hack the little bastard into pieces. Eleanor also left without saying anything, because she had never experienced humiliation like this in her life. She was the elder of the Misty sect and was treated with respect wherever she went. She cursed William in her heart and even decided to take revenge in the future. Rebecca hadn't seen the contents of the letter and obediently followed her mother back to the carriage. She thought that William was an interesting boy, but not worthy enough to become her fiancé. If Rebecca only knew what the interesting boy wrote in his letter, she might have summoned her staff and used it to beat the crap out of him until he shed tears of blood.